Scene opens in a room, with 3 people seated. A young girl stands up in rage and bangs the table, saying that she wouldn't allow them take him away from her. The elderly man advises her to settle down. But she's not bulging. The young man there asks the elderly man to excuse them, so that they could have a word together. The man leaves. They are both left alone. The young man tells her that it's not his intention to take the matter to court. He begs her to have a seat and listen, and not to give herself more trouble. He's optimistic that they'll come into a reasonable agreement. For the sake of their son. Their son. It's a couple of years back, and they are out on the open sea, cruising away on holiday. The vibes are chill, with delicious food, stunning views, and some eye-catching men around. It's the ultimate vacation vibe. Carol's soaking in the beauty of the sky, feeling all zen and stuff. She turns to her friend Gwen, ready to share the awe, like, isn't this just the best? But Gwen's in her own world, glued to her phone in the corner, totally zoned out. Carol's like, hey, what's up? You seeing this view? But Gwen's all like, hold up, just finishing this movie real quick. She's so deep into her screen, she's practically in the movie herself. Carol tries to snap her back to reality, reminding her why they are here, mentioning her dad and all. But Gwen's not having it. She fires back, yeah, I know. No need to yell, okay. She's got her priorities set, and it seems like the screen's winning over the sea views for now. Let's rewind to that special moment when Gwen's dad hands her those cruise tickets. It's a big deal, you know. 2 tickets, one for her and one for her date. But here's the kicker, it's a blind date, set up by none other than her dear old dad. Gwen's like, whoa, Dad, what's the deal? She's totally caught off guard. Why would he drop so much cash on a blind date, without knowing if it'll even click? But her dad, being the sweet soul he is, just shrugs it off like it's no biggie. He tells her he wants her to have some fun, to not end up all alone looking after him when he's old and grey. Carol's touched by his concern, but she's quick to reassure him. Dad, don't say that. I'll be happy no matter what, she says, trying to ease his worries. Still, she agrees to go on the blind date, just because it's her dad's idea. She takes those tickets with a smile, and her dad beams with pride. It's a touching moment between father and daughter, full of love and a hint of adventure. At the date later that night, she didn't get the chance to even mention the cruise. Every time she meets someone new, she always have hope that things would go well, but somehow, she always end up asking herself the same question, do I need to change who I am? Back to present. Carol encourages her, telling her that she still has time to blossom, and she's lucky to have her in the cruise. Gwen seems indifferent. Her friend turns to her and asks if she'll rather keep her face glued to her phone when all the hotties are running around half naked. She tells her that she has probably missed like 2 or 3 soulmates and she could have met one by now if she just look up. Gwen replies that it seems dramatic, but her friend urges he to pay attention to what she's saying. Meters away from them, 2 young men are passing by, one with a purple hair and purple eyes, the other is consoling him. He tells him that, since it's the last day of the trip, that he might even find someone special. He still looks on with a sad face. As they passed by, Gwen looks on at them. Her friend tells her that she'll be of help, telling her that it's the last day of the trip and they can't go home empty-handed. She replies naively that she got some souvenirs though. Her friend screams frustratingly, telling her that that's not what she's talking about. She appeals to God to give her common sense. She asks her friend if she really believes that she can do it. Her friend replies positively, telling her that she just needs to give herself a little push. She thinks about what her friend said. Her friend is happy that she has come around, saying that they'll party tonight. Actually, she's content with what she has now, but at the same time, she can't help but wish for something more. Carol tells he to go and change to her best conflicting outfit. Later that night, they get ready to party. She asks her friend if her outfit looks okay. She replies positively, and said that she's sure every man on the ship would run after her because of the dress. She feels her friend is exaggerating. Her friend drags her to the cruise club. She's nervous, but she assures her not to be worried. On their way, Two young guys approach them, asking if they can join them, and Carol answers immediately that they can. They introduce themselves easily, but Gwen holds back. She feels out of place. Carol's fitting in as usual. She feels she needs to work hard too. They continue their conversation. One of them asks her if she is old enough to drink. She replies that she is and asks why. He tells her that she has a baby face, that she's so cute. She wonders if that's supposed to be a pickup line. She thanks him for the compliment. The other guy asks her if she has hobbies, and she replies that she works all the time. The conversation continues, with them trying to get familiar. They walk away at last, and she heaved a sigh of relief. Carol asks her if she's okay, because she looks exhausted. She replies that she feels terrible. She never knew that mingling was so tiring. Carol decides to give up, saying that they can forget about meeting people, that they should just focus on having a great night all by themselves. She feels bad for her. She tells her that that's not what she meant, that she also wants to meet people. She apologizes to her friend for making her feel she's doing a bad thing, when she just wanted to help. Her friend tells her that it's okay, that they'll just have to rely on themselves once they're living alone as cute old grannies. She rushes to go grab drinks that we'll use for the night. Gwen is left alone. She looks around. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. It's as if they already knew each other. She wonders if she'll ever get better at fitting in. Then she could find the right person, maybe go on dates and create a nice life with a family of her own. But she knows none of that can happen just by sipping drinks on the sidelines. She wishes she was able to open herself up more. She sees a guy across, standing with a group of girls. It's the guy with the purple hair. He seems to be having fun, and she feels that nights like this would be a regular occurrence for him. The guy looks back and they exchange eye contact. She quickly looks away, but he waves at her and walks down to her. He asks her to help him. He's so cute. She wonders what he meant by that. He holds her shoulder and walks away with her, waving the other ladies goodbye. Carol on the side comes back. She says that there are many people on the line for drinks, and it's so frustrating. She looks around, but she can't find Gwen. She's afraid. Gwen and the young man got up another section of the cruise. He apologizes to her for scaring her and told her that he just wanted to look for a means to leave the area he was. She blurts out, saying he can't just do something like that to a stranger. He tells her that he saw her staring at him. She didn't know what to say. He asks her why she was staring at him. She thinks fast. Did he just change the subject? Who in the world asks questions like that to someone that they just met? She feels he's too straightforward. She stammers, telling him that she's not used to places like this, saying that she guessed she was looking for a better way to fit in, and she just saw how natural he looked, having such a good time. She wasn't trying to make him feel uncomfortable. He asks if they are looking for a good time. He tells her that he can help her with that he's also looking for how to kill time, that his friend left him for some women. He tells her that trying to connect with strangers can be very stressful. She agrees immediately but pauses, and asks if they aren't strangers, and why they are connecting so easily. He replies that it's true, but for some reasons he doesn't dislike her. He asks her if she's going to join him for the night. She looks at him. He's a smooth talker. She's getting worried. She asks him why he had even dragged a stranger like her here in the first place, asking him why she should trust him. He replies that that's a good question and tells her that he wanted to save his face. He laughs, but she can see beneath his laugh that he looks sad. He asks if she's hungry and offers that she go eat with him before they start hunting for her specific someone. She replies that she's not in desperate need of someone, but he cuts her short, telling her to relax, that he's just joking with her. He begins to walk away, thanking her for her help once more. As she watches him going away, the memory of the words Carol spoke to her earlier on comes back to her. You could have met the one by now if you could just look up. Sometimes you just need to give yourself a little push. She wonders if this is where she'll give herself that little push. She calls out to him, telling him to wait. She asks him if the food is good. He turns back, trying to understand her. Normally she would have rejected his offer, but today. She tells him that she wants to inform her friend first and he's okay with that. She wonders what she'll tell Carol. She texts her friend that she'll be hanging out with someone and promises to stay safe. Her friend is happy to hear that, and tells her to keep her updated. She wonders if Carol will believe if she tells her about him. A handsome but strange young man. He looks into her phone and comments on the emoji her friend sent. She tells him not to look. She feels he doesn't have a sense of personal space at all. he hurries away and tells her where the location is. They sit together. They are sitting in an area where the stars are visible. He tells her that this section is great for seeing the stars whole dinning and apologizes if she expected something more. She asks if he's joking, that there's no need to apologize, that the place is great, telling him that she hasn't eaten this well since before getting on the ship. He's surprised to hear that. He asks her if she wants some more and she replies positively. He asks if she'll love to join him after the dinner to watch fireworks, and she gladly accepts the offer. He teases her, asking her if she isn't too trusting, if she won't inform her friend again of where she's going to. He's right, it's unlike her to agree so readily to a stranger's request. After talking for a while now, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. They go to see the fireworks. It's beautiful. She never thought she'll have more fun on the last day of her trip. They watch on in silence. Although she can't tell if he feels the same way, she confirms that it wasn't just her imagination earlier. Every time he smiles, he looks sad. Then, from behind, a group of waitress comes from behind and shouts congratulations to him for his engagement. They gave their congratulatory gifts to them. She's surprised to hear that. They gift them 2 dolls, a male and a female, wishing them eternal happiness. They go away, leaving them to spend time alone. He looks at her and thanks her once again for being there for him. At least he was able to save his face in front of all those people. He tells that he was supposed to propose to his girlfriend tonight. That's the short story of why he's here. But she can already guess her answer. It dawns on her now, the reason for his sadness. Such a shame, honestly. She thinks she envies her for having someone who thoughtful prepared all of these for her. He apologizes to her for not being completely honest to her and wishes her success in what she's searching for tonight. He suggests that they end the night, but she tells him to wait. She doesn't even know who that girl is and she doesn't know her reason for not showing up. But she had a lot of fun today and she tells him that she thinks he's a good person. He laughs it off and asks what makes her think he's a good person. She replies that for some reasons. She don't dislike him too. He teases her, telling her not to take his line. She goes on telling him that she doesn't want to leave him feeling so miserable, or something like that. He asks her if she's sure that that's the only reason and she's pissed. She tells him to forget it, taking her words back, but he smiles and tells her that he's only joking. He looks at her and tells her his name. Hoping it's not too late for introductions, he tells her his name is Arthur. He asks for hers in return. She replies telling him her name. He tells her that it is nice to meet her. They go to the room and they started getting romantic. Looking back now, she feels being so agreeable that night was a mistake, because that's where it all started. How one sweet night turned into a bitter dispute. Back to the present. He plays a voice message sent to him. It's his sibling. They want to know how's doing. They haven't been able to reach him for a while and they are worried. Especially his mother. He's asked to call immediately. He sits in distrust, remembering his meeting with the doctor in the hospital. The doctor tells him that his condition has gotten worse and laboratory results shows that he's no longer capable of conceiving a child. He relays the information to Gwen and she proposes they split up. He's surprised, in his condition. He tells her that he's sure she thinks that he's worthless too. His mind flashes back to that night when they met. She had told him that he's a good person, and he shouldn't let anyone make him feel like he's worthless. It's morning. He wakes up at home. He can't believe that he remembered all of that in a dream of all things. He walks to the bathroom, had a shave and dresses up to the sitting room. There he meets the Nana and asks her if Gareth left home early. She replies in the positive, saying that she heard him saying that he was ordered to take care of some things. She asks him if he needs anything else, but he declines, saying that he's okay. His mind strolls to Gwen. He supposed is because he saw her the other day. He wonders if she has always been that abrasive, definitely different from what he can remember. He receives a message from Gareth telling him that they've arrived safely at the other house with Madam and his child. He replies the message, commending him for a job well done. He's happy. He can't wait to meet his child. He turns to Nana and asks her to tell him the kind of surprise gift a child would like. It's in the house. Gwen is on call with her friend. The baby is playing with a doll on the floor. She asks her why she gave in to him easily, and Gwen tries to explain that it's because he had a lawyer with him. Her mind flashed back to the encounter. There were 3 in the room. Arthur asks the lawyer to give both of them a private time. When the lawyer leaves, He tells her that it has taken him a while to find her. He urges her to have a seat and listen, saying that she doesn't have to give herself even more trouble. He goes on to tell her that he only wishes to do his part and have the chance to be a father to the child. She asks him what he even knows about raising a child, betting that he has only had babysitters his entire life. He speaks on, disregarding her rude statements. He says that he's just trying to be fair here, that he doesn't intend to make it an ongoing legal issue, especially considering how it would affect her situation. So he begs her to hear him out. He tells her that he only wants his visitation rights. He asks her to listen to his proposition. He proposes for her to give him 3 months to prove that he's capable of being a good father to Leon. He tells her that she won't have to worry about anything, that he'll start with ensuring proper childcare. She screams at him, saying that she doesn't want his money. He goes on, telling her that he's also aware of her current situation, stating that with those terms, she'll still have full custody, yet, his right to visitation must remain. He says that he just really needs the child. She wonders what he meant by that. Back to the phone call. Her friend splurts out of the phone calling him a devil and also telling her that they'll find a lawyer for her soon and she shouldn't give up. She thanks her and tells her that she won't let him wear her down. The doorbell rings, telling her friend that he's here. She hangs up, with her friend telling her that she shouldn't forget to fight back. She walks to the door, thinking what her friend said was right. She'll show him. She opens the door, and to her surprise, he's wearing a doll head and carries a doll and balloons on his hand. He tells her that he's the one. She calls his full name and asks him what he's doing, and he replies that he wants to surprise Leon. She feels that he definitely surprised her. She asks him to remove the head and come in normally. He ignores her and enters like that. He asks if she likes the place and she replies positively. He tells her that he's so excited to meet him, asking where he is, and she points at the other room. He moves there hurriedly. He remembers the report of the doctor about him not going to be able to conceive. He spoke in his mind saying that the doctor is wrong because he's about to meet his child. He appears and the child is scared because of the doll head. She tells him to remove it. This time he agrees with her. He asks if he can go near him and she replies positively. She looks at his face. It's a familiar face. He seems so different from the last time they met. He moves happily towards Leon. He stretches his hand and tries to touch him. The child smiles. Gwen watches them from afar. He asks if he can hold her. She carries the child up and said that she still doesn't trust him. He begs her. She tells him that she'll let him go near only in his presence. He looks at her and agrees to that, saying that because she agreed to his own terms, he needs to prove his capability of being a father anyway. She's surprised at the way he's behaving. She was expecting a rebuttal here. He asks again if he can hold him. She gives the child to him and tells him that he should be extra careful while holding him. He agrees. She's buried in her thoughts. She won't let him have her Leon, but she also won't deny him from his father. She's sure every child would want to have their parents' love. She wonders where the jerk from the other day went. He was talking about court, law, jail, but he's a different person today. He turns to her and tells her that she was a little scary the last time they met. She reminds him that he was also scary, that he even threatened her. He apologizes immediately, saying that he just really wanted to see him. He asks her how she has been. She replies that it's easy to act scary when one is scared, but he tells her that he doesn't mean that day. He's asking about since they were on the cruise. He asks again how she has been. At that point, the child started crying. He gives him back to her and decides to leave and come back the next day. While going, he tells her that the house has all the necessities they both will need, from food to clothes. She thanks him, saying that he shouldn't have bothered though. He bids farewell, and she reminds him about his promise. He tells her not to worry, that he plans to honor it if things go well. He takes Leon's hand from her hair, telling him not to mess up the hair. He bids them farewell for the last time. Back in the room, she's on the bed. She tells Leon that they still need to be careful, that she's not sure if this nice guy persona is all an act or what. She pats him, saying he did a good job. She ponders on his question, asking her how she has been. A lot of things happened since then, all that suffering. Her parents had her late in their marriage. That's why her dad is older, despite her only being in her mid-20s. As for her mum, she passed away when she was young. Her father told her that she didn't really like taking photos, so she treasures this one picture she has with her a lot. Her father is always telling her to hurry up and get a boyfriend or something. She replies that she believes those things come naturally. In a way, she understands where he's coming from. He'll reply that he doesn't want her to grow up old and lonely. She cuts him short, telling him that he always says that, but she's fine and that he's going to live a long time. That last sentence didn't come true, as her father later died. Her extended family members came together to discuss her fate. None of them agreed to take her in. That's when she discovered that she had no family anymore. She wakes up with a start. She had that dream again. She whispers her love for her father. She turns to check on Leon. He has been sleeping peacefully since they got here. Right now, he's her only family. She refused to give it to anyone. It's in Arthur's house. He thanks Nana for the food, saying it is specially delicious. He hugs her affectionately. She asks if something happened at home, that he's in a very good mood, but he replies that something more better happened. He bids her good night and leaves to his room. She turns to Gareth and asks what's going on, and he said that it's a secret. She wonders what it is, but whatever it is, she's happy to see him this happy, because it's been a while. Arthur's thinking about his child. He can't believe it. His son is too cute. Ever since he was diagnosed, he had lost all hope of having a family of his own. It's a good thing that he found her. He wonders why he asked her such a question earlier. He asked something so simple to a person who went through so much, when he haven't ever been there to support her. He guess what he really wanted to ask is why she left all of a sudden that time. But he comes to a conclusion that there's no use thinking about it anymore. He lays down to sleep. It's morning. Nana comes to wake him up. He gets up immediately. She's surprised at his speed. He asks her why he can't sleep. It's in Mega Development Corp vicinity. He's found resting on a chair in one office. His friend Percy asks him why he's resting in his office, and that being a boss, he has a lot of free time. He also looks awful. Arthur replies that he doesn't want his office to be messed up. That's why Percy coaxes him to tell him the issue, stating that he doesn't ever come to visit, only to lay down. He sits up, telling him that it's nothing. He asks him what's on his desk, pointing at some flowers there, and Percy tells him that today is the day he wants to meet with his ex-wife. He teases him, asking him why she accepted, if she knocked her head or something. Percy doesn't take this lightly, but he smiles and said that he's only joking, wishing him the best in the meeting. He tells Arthur that the biggest challenge is gaining back his ex-wife's trust. Repairing a woman's trust is harder than it looks like, but as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. It strikes Arthur, as he becomes deep in thoughts. He was so focused on Leon that he forgot about her feelings. In the house with Leon, Gwen is in the kitchen, trying to prepare a meal. She promises to get him some new clothes when she gets a new job. The door opens and Arthur walks in. He announces himself and is welcomed by her. He asks if she's had anything to eat, that he brought some food. She replies that she's good, that she has already prepared their own meal. He walks towards Leon to greet him. She wants him to wash his hands first. He asks if it's okay for him to join them for dinner, and she accepts. She's in the kitchen dishing the food, while he stays at the dining playing with Leon. She wonders if he'll even like the food. She brings the good, asking if he'll like some. Although it's not as good as what he brought, he accepts to eat it. She serves him the food and he watches while she feeds Leon. She feels his eyes on her and turns to ask if something is wrong. He told her that there's nothing wrong, but he just thought that they were both adorable. She looks at him, that mischievous smile of his, that compliment also usually gets to her. She wonders why he has to be shining all the time. He compliments her food, saying that it tastes different from Nana's cooking, but it's also delicious. She asks who Nana is and he explains that she's someone who has taken care of her since she was young. He went on and on with his Nana, so she was sure that he was raised with a silver spoon, but with the way he talks about her, he seems to really adore her like a real mother. She looks at him and remembers the man sitting in front of her in the room with the lawyer. She almost can't believe that is that same man. He stops in his track and apologizes for the unnecessary ramblings, asking if he said something wrong. She replies that she was just wondering which is the real him. He's confirmed. He asks again if he's the same man that met her with the lawyer or the one which she met at the cruise ship. He asks why she wants to know and she replies that he should forget it. Immediately Leon begins to cry. He hurries to carry him. He wonders what the issue is. He cries loudly on his hands and he's scared. She tells him not to panic, that they only need to change his diaper. In a minute he gets a face mask and gloves. He places the baby on a flat surface. She's surprised that he had to wear all of that. They were just about to change his diaper. He tells her to relax, that he knows how to do it. She offers to help, but he refuses. She gives him the instructions, and he did it successfully. Leon starts laughing. He acknowledges that he likes it. It's getting late and he wants to leave. He tells her that he'll send Nana to visit and help her here. But she refuses, saying that there's no need for that. Although she doesn't know if it's real of an act though, but he's doing decently. She was expecting their stay together to be miserable. He bid her good night and brings out a bunch of flowers and presents it to her, asking her to accept it, and he tells her that regarding her question earlier, he's still that guy she met on the ship. He goes on to tell her that he knows that their relationship began in an unusual way, but he still wants to know more about her and he hopes that they can start afresh, this time as friends first. It might be better if he really turns out to be a bad guy, because at this rate, it's hard to be angry with him. Arthur just told Nana about his son, and she thinks it's a big deal. He hasn't told his mom yet, because he doesn't want to worry her. He's only told Nana and Gareth. He's worried his mom will make a big fuss about it. Nana wonders if Elaine knows, but Arthur says no. He met Gwen after breaking up with Elaine on that cruise he went on. Nana asks if he's sure the kid is his, and he says he got the test results. He plans to tell his family eventually, but for now, he just wants to spend time with Gwen and their child to make up for lost time. In Arthur's house, only him, his mom, and Nana know about his condition. Nana asks about Gwen, and Arthur wonders if Gwen would talk to Nana if he asked her to help. Nana is surprised, thinking Gwen might be more than just a one-night fling. But Arthur insists he's just curious about her. It's true, Arthur has been more interested in Gwen since that night. He wonders if she'll accept him. He's been trying to find her, using all his resources, until one day he spots her during a visit to a small town. Nana promises to help as best as she can, but reminds him he also needs to make an effort. Arthur agrees, saying he's already started keeping track of Gwen. Gwen is angrily cleaning her house when there's a knock on the door. She opens it to find Nana standing there. Nana introduces herself as Lydia, but says Gwen can call her Nana. Gwen introduces herself too. Nana mentions she's been taking care of Arthur since he was a baby, even though they are not related by blood. She assures Gwen that she's good with kids and asks her to trust her. Nana notices Gwen has already done a lot of cleaning. Just then, Leon starts crying, and Nana quickly picks him up. She asks Gwen how old he is, and Gwen says he's almost 7 months. Nana thinks to herself that Leon looks a lot like Artie. She plays with Leon, and Gwen is surprised that he stops crying. Nana suggests she could teach Gwen some tricks for handling situations like this. Nana teaches Gwen some tricks, and Gwen realizes Nana is actually really nice. She had been worried when Arthur sent someone to look after them, but Nana turns out to be kind. When Nana talks about Mr. Moranti, she calls him Artie, showing they must be close. She wonders what he's up to, but insists she's not interested. Meanwhile, at Mega Development Corp, Arthur can't focus on work. He's curious about what happened with Gwen during their time apart, especially after her earlier reaction. He instructs his assistant to try to find more information about Gwen's family if possible. Every time Arthur looks at Gwen, he can't figure out what she's thinking. Besides avoiding his gaze, there's something about her reaction that puzzles him. Could it all really be because of him? Or maybe it's something to do with her family. Where are they anyway? He wishes he could see her smile again. He feels like a fool for not looking for her sooner. Back at Gwen's home, as she sews Leon's clothes, she admits having some help is nice. Maybe having Nana Lydia around wasn't such a bad idea after all. With her assistance, she was able to take care of some other things. Nana comes over and mentions they are both stuck inside this place. She wonders what Artie was thinking. Gwen reassures her it's okay, it's just for a few months. She's going to honor his request to be a father to her son. Nana sadly thinks to herself about what Artie has done to Gwen. Later, Gwen thanks Nana for her help today. Nana insists she should be the one thanking Gwen. It's been a while since she's seen Artie come home, with a smile on his face. While she doesn't know the whole story between Gwen and Artie, she wants Gwen to know that Artie is a really kind person. If possible, Gwen should give him a chance. Gwen reflects inwardly that she hasn't seen her mom in a long time, but this might be how it feels. Arthur walks in and asks Nana if she said anything strange about him. She laughs and says no before heading inside. Arthur turns to Gwen and asks if Nana isn't the best. Gwen agrees, saying she learned a lot today. Arthur mentions he has a day off tomorrow and suggests going somewhere. Since he's not a fan of crowds, he suggests a small picnic in a nearby foothill. Gwen responds that she's too tired for that kind of activity. Arthur then suggests staying over for the night, with Nana also there, so he can spend time with Leon and her. He holds her hand and reminds her that she told him to focus on their son last night, but wonders if there's a way he can pay attention to both of them. He expresses his desire to understand her better. Gwen thinks to herself that Arthur is probably just trying to win her over so he can gain custody of Leon. But she notices his hands are shaking a lot, just like they used to do before. Can she really believe him again? Nana walks in and Gwen quickly pulls her hand away. Nana comments that little Leon has already fallen asleep and suggests it's time for them to leave. Gwen thinks to herself that if things are going to be like this, she'll use the tactic Arthur always uses. She tells him he can stay for the night, but only if he agrees to do one thing she'll tell him later. Arthur agrees, as long as it doesn't change anything about their agreement. Inside the room, Arthur asks Nana if she's found anything out about Gwen. Nana replies that she hasn't, explaining that Gwen doesn't seem like the type to talk much. She wonders about their current setup, questioning why he can't just let them stay in his house instead of hiding them away like fugitives in another property. He explains that he can't let his mother and sisters see them yet, because his mistake made Gwen's life miserable. That's why he's doing all of this to make it up to her and their son. Nana responds, saying he's only doing it out of guilt. She has a feeling Gwen might be the person he's searching for, as she has the qualities of a good wife. However, she advises Arthur to think carefully about her suggestion. Leaving them alone like this could be dangerous. Nana finds Gwen in her room and explains that she can't stay the night with them. She needs to go home to take care of her grandchildren. Nana asks Gwen to give Artie a chance to make things right, as she's mentioned before that he's a kind person. She assures Gwen that she'll be back first thing in the morning. Nana also mentions that she's prepared everything little Leon needs. Arthur wonders how he should approach Gwen and Leon. When Leon starts crying, Arthur goes to the sitting room and finds Gwen holding him. She apologizes for the noise and explains it's why she doesn't want him to stay. Arthur reassures her it's not a problem and asks if Leon is hungry or needs a diaper change. Gwen tells him that Leon has already been fed and changed, but sometimes he just cries. Arthur quickly grabs a giraffe toy and starts playing with Leon, who stops crying. Arthur suggests he could look after Leon so Gwen can rest, but she doesn't agree. He tells Gwen that he doesn't plan on taking Leon away while she sleeps. He was just thinking that dealing with all of this every day must be tough on her, and he wanted to help her relax. He apologizes if he overstepped. Gwen hands Leon over to him, saying he can keep him close where she can see. Gwen goes to the kitchen and returns. Arthur suggests she use some blankets to relax while he watches Leon. She insists she doesn't need them, but he insists she should. He holds her and remarks on how light she is, telling her she should eat more. Leon starts giggling, and Arthur jokes that he agrees with Leon, she has a funny face right now. Gwen tells him to put her down, so he places her on the sofa. Arthur tells her to rest well and to call him if she needs anything. Arthur holds Gwen's hair in a romantic way, and tells her he's glad she's still the same. Gwen thinks to herself that she's not the same inwardly. She suggests they shouldn't do something they'll regret again. Just then, Leon makes a sound, and Arthur quickly picks him up. Gwen thinks to herself that it's bringing back memories she doesn't want to remember. Arthur takes photos of Leon and then looks at Gwen, wishing her sweet dreams. The next morning, Gwen wakes up feeling like it's the first time she's had a decent sleep in a long while. She looks around but doesn't see Leon or Arthur. Just then, Arthur walks in carrying Leon and greets her good morning. He asks if she was able to get some sleep, and she asks him the same. Arthur replies that Leon wakes up every hour, so he didn't get much sleep. Gwen takes Leon, and Arthur collapses onto the sofa immediately. She wonders if he stayed up all night just to let her get some rest. Suddenly, Leon reaches for Arthur's face, waking him up. Arthur asks Gwen if he did a good job, and she replies, barely. He tries to go back to sleep, but Leon stomps on his face with his little feet. Later that day, Leon interrupts Arthur while he's trying to get some sleep, and Gwen comes in, greeting him. Nana tells Arthur to get ready to join them, and he asks why she didn't wake him earlier. At the dining table, Arthur feels stressed out. He thinks to himself that he should be spending his precious day off with Leon, but instead, he's here. Nana suggests they go outside later for a change and offers to take care of things at home. Arthur agrees, saying it's a good idea. He asks Gwen if she wants to go. Gwen thinks to herself that she can't accept. It's a complicated situation because if she says yes, she's sure he'll pay for everything, and she'll just seem like someone taking advantage of him. He tells Gwen he knows what she's thinking and reassures her that he won't use any of this against her. He just wants her and Leon to join him on his day off. Gwen agrees, saying they'll join him just for today. As Gwen gets dressed, she texts with Carol. Carol informs her that she found them a lawyer, and they should meet him on her day off. Gwen thinks to herself that she and Arthur are supposed to be enemies, but seeing all his recent efforts touches her heart a bit. She wonders what she's really doing. Nana knocks on Gwen's door and tells her that Leon is ready, and Arthur is too. She assures Gwen that she'll take care of everything before they leave. Gwen is surprised to see how nicely Nana has dressed Leon. In the living room, Arthur waits for them and mentions that his head hurts a bit. Gwen apologizes for the delay, and Arthur suggests they should go. As they walk, he asks if she wants to go anywhere, but she declines. She admits she's not familiar with the neighborhood. He suggests going to a zoo since Leon seems to like animals. He offers to drive them there, but she points out they don't have a car seat for Leon. She tries to take back her words, but he realizes she must be worried about him spending money on them. He's started noticing how much they lack, even the stroller looks worn out. He takes them to a market and tells Gwen that anything she wants is on him. She insists they're okay, but he reminds her that he won't use these things against her. If anything, he thinks it's nothing compared to what she must have gone through. He tells her she doesn't have to do everything alone and encourages her to let him spoil her. Gwen insists she'll pay him back, and he agrees. Arthur tries buying things that Leon doesn't need, and Gwen tells him to just watch Leon and behave. She insists she'll take over. Inwardly, she feels like she's out with two sons. Arthur is too carefree. Is he even taking this seriously? Anyway, she wants to get it done and over with. She tries reaching for something, but she's too short. Arthur comes from behind to help her out and tells her to call him if she needs help. After all, she's a tiny person. He asks if she needs help with anything else she wants to buy, and she replies that they don't need to buy a lot. They still need to be able to carry everything. Arthur is amazed she's thinking about those things. Leon starts making sounds, and Gwen realizes he must be hungry. She gives him a bottle of milk and kisses him. Arthur tells her she's really amazing. As they go to pay, some girls seem to be in love with Arthur. Gwen thinks to herself that he's just bound to draw attention wherever he goes. The women behind them keep staring, and she's sure they're gossiping about why someone like her is together with someone like him. She can't help but wonder what other people think of their relationship when they see them from afar. As they walk back home, she offers to help him carry some things, but he says it's all right because they are nearby. Inwardly, she notices that he's walking beside her, matching his pace to hers, even though she's sure he's ready to get home with all the stuff he's carrying. As they reach their neighborhood, two women see them and recognize them as the new family who recently moved in. They say it's nice to finally meet them, and Arthur smiles, saying they hope to see them more. Inside the house, Arthur asks Gwen if she needs help setting anything up. She insists she's fine and asks if he isn't going home soon since it's getting late. Arthur jokes that technically this is his home too, but then quickly adds that he's just kidding and says he'll leave in just a bit. She suggests he should go wash up after carrying everything himself, and he agrees. In her room, Leon starts making sounds again, indicating he's hungry. She tells him to wait there, and she'll go make something for him. Arthur enters without his shirt, asking if everything is all right, because he heard Leon crying. He admits he forgot to bring a change of clothes with him to the washroom. Gwen tells him he should learn how to knock and asks him to please get dressed already. In the living room, as she feeds Leon, she comments that he's eating a lot. Arthur tells Gwen she needs to eat more because she's too light. He's mentioned it before, but she remains silent. He apologizes again for earlier. Tomorrow, he has an important meeting with a client and asks about her plans. She mentions she's meeting her best friend, and he asks when he can meet her. Gwen says never and asks him to please refrain from mentioning the cruise again. He explains that he was really lost and depressed back then. He thought instead of wasting the tickets, he'd just bring his friend with him. Then, he told him something really cheesy. He suggested trying to find his special someone on that ship. At first, he thought it was a really absurd notion. But then, he saw her. She was trying her best to talk to new people, even though he could tell she was uncomfortable. He's curious about her. She asks why he's trying so hard to understand her. Is it because of Leon? He replies no. Even though she left him after a one-night stand, she wonders. He reassures her that he's sure she has her reasons. He holds her hands and says that's exactly what he wants to understand. She should help him understand. He thought they clicked, so he searched everywhere for her. Her eyes widen as she asks if it's true. His phone starts ringing. It's Gareth, his ride is already here. Leon crawls to him, and Arthur lifts him up, kissing him. He promises to visit again soon. He tells Gwen he's leaving and suggests they discuss what happened earlier another time. He gently holds her hand and thanks her for giving him this opportunity. Then, he kisses her hand before heading out. As he leaves, she tells herself she can't back down now just because he's being a little nice. She calls Carol and apologizes for calling so late. She suggests they meet up tomorrow at the law firm Carol mentioned. Their reality is too complicated, and they need to discuss it. The next day, Gwen tells Nana she's heading off and will be back as soon as possible. As she leaves, Nana texts Arthur to let him know. In Arthur's office, he realizes he doesn't have Gwen's contact info. He guesses he never gave her his either. The law firm ended up being the one to get in contact with her. Gwen meets Carol at a cafe, and Carol asks why she can't visit the house Gwen's staying in. Gwen explains that Arthur sent someone to look after her and Leon. Carol comments that Arthur is a cunning man who planned everything to work against her. Gwen acknowledges that Nana does take good care of Leon, and she's actually learned a lot from her even in a short amount of time. Carol asks what happened to Gwen's fighting spirit. She advises Gwen not to be seduced by these things, because they are just trying to make her put her guard down. Carol urges Gwen to promise that she'll fight for Leon and do her best. She reminds Gwen that she's been with her and Leon since the beginning and that she'd never be able to face their uncle if something were to happen to them both. They arrive at the law firm, and Gwen mentions she doesn't think they have the money to hire someone from a place like this. It's a high-class firm, and even the clients look posh. She doesn't think they are in the right tax bracket to afford these people. She figures they'll just wait for their turn. A guy carrying books accidentally drops them, and Gwen goes to help him. He thanks her, and she offers to help him carry the books. The guy asks if she's a client here alone, and she replies that she was actually waiting for her friend. They reach the guy's office, and he invites Gwen in, but she declines. He asks for her name, but another guy interrupts, quoting acts and punishments. The guy asks Gwen if she's okay and calls her name. She then realizes it's Lance. They go inside the office, and the other guy introduces himself as Gail Holt, welcoming Gwen and Carol to the law firm. Gail sweetly asks Gwen what brings her here, and she explains to them. Gail says it's unacceptable, and they should definitely file a petition. Gwen asks if he thinks it's possible to win, and Gail reassures her that she has nothing to worry about. He explains that they are one of the top law firms in the country right now, and even though they recently opened, Lance here is among the best rookies. Lance adds that Gail should stop overpraising him. Gail gives Gwen his personal contact info. Lance jokingly tells him to stop being a creep, and Carol suggests that she gives him her contact info instead. Lance asks Gwen if she's free after this, and she says she is, but she also needs to go back home soon. He promises it won't take long. Gwen and Lance head to a nearby cafe. Lance apologizes for Gail, mentioning that he's actually a great attorney and business partner. He suggests Gwen warn Carol not to take him too seriously. Lance apologizes again, admitting that he asked Carol to keep it from her. Gwen reassures him that it's not a big deal. He mentions it's a sensitive topic and questions why she agreed to the guy's terms. It seems to him like he's just trying to make everything in his favor. Gwen angrily responds that the guy is always demanding things without thinking twice, always asking for the impossible. She told him she was perfectly fine raising Leon on her own. She doesn't understand why he's getting involved when it would have been easier for him and them if he just stayed out of their lives. Lance thinks to himself that a one-night stand resulting in a difficult situation is a bit weird. Gwen says sometimes he has some redeemable moments. She admits that she's at fault too. It wouldn't have been a one-night stand if she didn't make it one. Plus, she keeps agreeing to things easily. She apologizes to Lance if she's boring him, and he assures her that she's not. She admits that even though she was surprised it was him handling her case, she's relieved it's someone she can trust. Lance remembers a time when he was at a restaurant with Gwen. He gets a call and thinks to himself that this leaves him with only two options: career advancement or staying with the person he likes. Coming from a poor family, he couldn't help but think it was his lucky break. Currently, he apologizes to her, saying he shouldn't have left her in the middle of their date. She responds by saying she's proud of him. He always dreamed of having his own law firm. There's no point in worrying about the past anyway, what's done is done. Outside, she apologizes for cutting their time short, but she really needs to get back to Leon. She tells him to feel free to contact her anytime. As she walks away, Lance calls her and rushes to hug her from behind. Lance says this time he'll protect her, then he lets her go and mentions he'll see her soon. On the bus, Carol calls Gwen and apologizes for ditching her for Gail. She also apologizes for not telling Gwen that Lance was involved. Gwen responds by saying she's actually more confident knowing it's him who'll take care of this case for her. At home, Nana welcomes Gwen and mentions that Artie may not be able to come tonight. Gwen responds that it can't be helped, she supposes, and she thanks Nana for her help today. After Nana leaves, Gwen tells Leon that it's been a while since it's been just the two of them. After a while, Lance calls her. He apologizes for calling so late and asks if the caretaker she mentioned is still there. She says it's just her and Leon. He says he wants to apologize for earlier. She asks if that falls under the law he mentioned to Mr. Gale about invading someone's space. She then starts laughing, and he says he called because they might need more information about Arthur. 3 days later, Gwen thinks to herself that it's been 3 days since Arthur last visited. He must be really busy with work. As she and Nana have bath time with Leon, Nana tells her that Arthur wouldn't be able to make it today. Gwen says it's no problem. Nana thinks to herself that Gwen has been asking a lot about Arthur these days. Has the day finally come for him? Gwen thinks to herself that she hasn't been able to get any information this way for Lance. Come to think of it, she doesn't have his contact. She guesses she never figured she'd be needing it. At Mega Development Corp, Arthur's best friend Percy tells him that he's starting to look more grim than usual. Why doesn't he take a break? Arthur says he can't. He has to make this deal work this time. His late father was working hard to make this housing project a reality, but his best friend says still he shouldn't overwork, he'll go grab some coffee. Arthur recalls when Nana tells him that Gwen was mending some old clothes for Leon and her wares, and he says he'll ask them to live with him the next time he's over there. He wonders what they are doing, he wants to visit them soon. Outside, Gareth brings Gwen to Arthur's company. Nana sent her to bring something for Arthur, and she thinks to herself that it would be the perfect opportunity to gather information about Arthur. After a bit of trouble with the receptionist, she meets with Percy, who escorts her to Arthur. They chat about the possibility of meeting again, and she realizes that Arthur has been truthful with her all along. Percy had suggested surprising Arthur with Gwen, but unfortunately, it doesn't work out as planned. Arthur is surprised to see Gwen. After some funny banter with Percy, Arthur escorts Gwen to his office. He asks her why she's there, and she hands him the item Nana asked her to bring. Then, he puts his arm around Gwen, and she asks him what he's doing. He jokes that he's recharging because he missed her. Arthur advises Gwen to avoid talking to strangers, emphasizing that it's safer for her to steer clear of him, because he might cause trouble. Gwen brushes off his warning, calling him dramatic. Later, after a phone call, she mentions that Percy forgot to bring his coffee. Arthur responds by saying he no longer wants the coffee. Arthur collects the item Nana gave Gwen, and she announces she's leaving, feeling uneasy about being in the room. She doesn't want to be reminded of how everything began. Arthur suggests they go somewhere for a while, thinking it's a shame for her to come all this way just to leave so soon. However, Gwen insists on taking her leave now. He continues to follow her, insisting he wants to see her out. She explains she doesn't want people to get the wrong idea about their relationship. She doesn't want to create more problems. Isn't that why he's keeping her and Leon hidden? They hear noises, and Arthur quickly grabs Gwen's hand, pulling her to another corner. He motions for her to be quiet as Percy informs Arthur's client that he must have stepped out for a break. Percy mentions that Arthur has been putting in long hours lately. Gwen thinks to herself that she thought Arthur was carefree, but he appears different at work. Arthur expresses a wish that she didn't have to hear that, and he says he's going to leave now. Gwen mentions that it's still his break time, isn't it? They step outside to sit, and Arthur mentions that he never expected her to be the one inviting him out. Gwen replies that she never thought he was actually busy, and Arthur confirms that he is, as he's a man contributing to society. Gwen remarks that he always seems like he's fooling around, but she doesn't see him that way anymore. He seemed pretty serious today. He admits that he actually hates working. She thought he must have had some big goals for himself, with how hard he's been working lately. He laughs and tells her she thinks too highly of him. He doesn't have anything like that. Arthur explains that the company was handed to him after his father died. His real dream is pretty ordinary, just meeting someone special, going on dates, falling in love with her, and having a family, or something along those lines. He admits it sounds boring, but she insists it's romantic. He wonders what he should do, admitting that even back then, he enjoyed being around her. She playfully stretches her hand and touches his face, teasing him about his lack of personal space. After a moment, she pulls her hand away. He thanks her for the break, feeling better already. She invited him out because she was concerned about the earlier talk about him. She freaks out, denying it, but he reassures her, saying she doesn't need to be shy about it. He admits she probably already guessed, but there's a lot of family stuff going on, and honestly, it's a pain in the butt. He apologizes for not visiting in a few days. She starts to leave since he's feeling better, but he insists it's still early and she can stay a while longer. She mentions that even though he's super busy, he should at least try to visit sometimes. She questions the use of their agreement if he's just going to waste precious days in a stuffy office. She reminds him she is still evaluating his capability to be a good father to Leon. She mentions she's leaving, and he thanks her for checking up on him. As she heads out, he follows her and asks for her number. He promises to let her know if he can visit or not. She gives him the number, and he asks if he can message her 4 times a day, but she declines, saying he should only message when it's important. Then he asks if sharing pictures of Leon counts as important. She's surprised to see a cute picture of Leon. Arthur comments that Leon is cute, just like his mother. As Arthur says goodbye and leaves, Gwen thinks to herself that she hates how easily he can say things like that. She's not even sure if he's telling the truth or not. But she also strangely enjoys being around him. It's not good, she shouldn't be swayed like this by that flirt. Just then, a lady asks if it isn't Gwen, asking where she's been and where she's running off to now. In Arthur's office, he happily exclaims that he finally got Gwen's number and assures her he'll call her before he goes to visit. Meanwhile, where Gwen is, the lady asks her if she recently moved there and why she ran away from home. She mentions they made sure Gwen had everything she needed and even loved her like their own immediate family. After Gwen's stepfather passes away, she moves in with her biological father's new family for a little while. She's been told that when her mother had her, they were already separated because they couldn't work out their differences. She's from a marriage without love, and her stepsister, Camilla, along with her mother, always made her feel like she didn't belong. Despite trying hard to fit in every day, she realized they wouldn't accept her. That's why she decided to work part-time and find her own place. Working day and night wasn't easy. Honestly, enduring all the mistreatment was tough. Even though her time with them was short, she can't help but remember the bad memories. Right now, the guy next to Camilla tells her to calm down. Gwen says her family never showed her love, and she doesn't owe Camilla anything. Camilla says Gwen can stand up for herself now. She didn't expect Gwen to have a backbone after getting pregnant by some random guy. She even calls Gwen a slut. Suddenly, Arthur steps out and asks if everything is okay. Camilla wonders who he is. The man next to Camilla reminds her they need to hurry for the meeting. Camilla then asks Gwen why she's here and who the man with her is. Hurriedly, Gwen rushes away, but Arthur catches up, asking her to wait. With tears welling up, she thinks to herself that she doesn't want him to know. He shouldn't be dragged into her family problems or any of her personal issues either. Arthur grabs her shoulder gently and asks if she'll at least hear him out. He admits he's not good at dealing with situations like the one earlier, but he wants her to know he's here to listen. He genuinely meant it when he said he wanted to understand her, but he won't push her to share anything she's not comfortable with. He really wants to help her through whatever she's going through. He asks if he did something wrong, and she apologizes, saying she couldn't help but cry. He explains that since their talk last night, he's been thinking. He wanted to ask her under better circumstances, but he wonders what she thinks about the idea of them, along with Leon, becoming a family. Arthur tells her he's been thinking a ton about stuff, not happy with how he's been dealing with things. That's why he's deciding to step up and take responsibility. She's confused, saying he's not making sense. She's already agreed to his visitation rights, and she doesn't want their situation to be an excuse for anything like this. He tells her he wants her to understand there are things about their situation he doesn't feel bad about, like meeting her, chatting with her, and being intimate. She responds, telling him not to say those things lightly. He then asks her opinion on his new proposal. His phone rings, and he tells whoever's calling that he'll arrive soon. Gwen thinks to herself that she had a great dad, but she never experienced what a regular family is all about while growing up. Even now, the only family she has left treats her badly. She's puzzled because she doesn't understand why her family treats her so poorly. When Leon was born, she made up her mind to be the best mom she could be. But what does it mean to be a family, anyway? Everything changed for her when Arthur showed up again in their lives. She wonders why someone as impressive as him would choose her. She believes having Arthur around is good for Leon, but what about them? She tells Arthur they hardly know anything about each other, and they are not in love. She thinks it's not a real solution. It's just setting them up for more problems. He asks her how she can be so sure, when they haven't even given it a shot. He assures her he's not the type to jump into bed with just anyone. He wonders if she's seeing someone else, but she says no. He suggests they give it a try, and they should talk about it seriously later, like grown-ups. He plans to come over to her place after work, and he'll give her a call beforehand. She knows she has to come clean about what really happened that night, the reason why she's been avoiding him. At the meeting with Camilla, one of Arthur's aunt asks where he is. Percy apologizes, explaining that Arthur had to handle something important, but assures them he'll be back shortly. Arthur's aunt apologizes for his behavior, suggesting they start without him. Camilla reassures her, saying it's not a big deal. The aunt turns to the attorney and asks about the situation. He replies that everything seems fine except for the fact that the owner has an heir. He explains that they need the legal heir from her father's legitimate marriage to give consent for the deal to proceed. Without it, they can't move forward legally. So, they're stuck at this point until they figure it out. They'll search for another way around it, but she'll need to persuade the heir to join their next meeting if possible. Later, as they are all standing together, Arthur comes by, apologizing for being late. Camilla thinks to herself that he's the man who was with Gwen earlier. In Arthur's office, his aunt questions him about his whereabouts. He apologizes, explaining he had some things to sort out. She reminds him that both she and his father worked hard to build the company, and she won't tolerate his unprofessional behavior anymore. Later at the office, Percy apologizes to Arthur, saying he gave it his all. Arthur agrees, admitting that he's starting to consider resigning from his job. He mentions he's thinking about getting married, and Percy questions if he's rushing into things. Arthur points out they have a child together. Percy asks who else knows about it, and Arthur replies that only him, Nana, and Gareth are aware. Percy inquires about the child's age, and Arthur mentions that their son is now 7 months old. Percy then wonders where the child is, and Arthur explains he's at one of his properties. Arthur admits he's been handling everything badly. He's only just begun communicating with Gwen and started their new relationship by making threats. He believed if he talked to her like usual, she wouldn't agree to anything. So, he kept them hidden, pretending it was for their safety. But deep down, he realizes he was just scared of her leaving again. Nana was right. He feels terrible about it. Percy wonders about Gwen, and what Arthur feels for her. He points out that Arthur's actions suggest he doesn't just see her as the mother of his child. Arthur admits he's always been drawn to Gwen ever since he laid eyes on her. He genuinely enjoyed their time together, and he's not the type to be with just anyone for the sake of it. He felt a connection with her and believed they could understand each other. Gwen makes him feel at ease, and he's determined to ensure she's looked after, along with their baby. This is his opportunity to have his own family, something he had given up on a long time ago. Percy acknowledges that it must be tough for Arthur to handle everything on his own. As a way of showing his gratitude for confiding in him about such a big deal, Percy offers to help with some of Arthur's work today, so he can leave the office early. As Camilla exits the building, she expresses frustration, questioning why they can't just sell the property. The man with her agrees with the lawyer, suggesting they should talk to Gwen about it. Camilla reacts incredulously, asking if he's lost his mind. They've been handling everything behind Gwen's back, and now he wants her to suddenly ask Gwen about it after not seeing her for months. She points out they don't even have a good enough relationship with Gwen to attempt that. She's frustrated that they are facing this problem now just because she's seen as an illegitimate child, a fortune Gwen doesn't even care about. However, today she witnessed something intriguing that could be the key connected to her son. In Gwen's home, she tells Nana she managed to give it to him. She picks up Leon and expresses gratitude to Nana for always looking after him so well. Nana replies that she enjoys helping them both. With so many kind people around her now, Gwen's starting to feel like the villain. That evening, as Gwen takes a bath, she reflects on everything that happened today. From confronting Camilla to Arthur expressing his desire to be a family, she's unsure how to feel about it all. Arthur enters the house, asking where everyone is. He spots Leon, picks him up, and gives him a kiss, commenting on how he feels heavier already, even though it's only been 3 days. Gwen comes out with a towel, wondering if Nana forgot something because she heard voices. When she sees Arthur and Leon, Arthur covers Leon's eyes, and Gwen swiftly shuts the door. She shouts for Arthur to please ring the doorbell before barging into the house unannounced. As Arthur and Leon sit in the living room watching kids' songs, Gwen comes out, surprised that he's here already. She mentions he could have called her first. Arthur apologizes, explaining that Percy let him leave work early, and he got so caught up in the excitement that he forgot to call. He offers to help dry her hair, assuring her not to worry because he used to do it for his little sister. He explains that his little sister is sandwiched between them. He's the oldest sibling and has 2 younger sisters. There's a bit of an age gap between them, and his middle sister is probably around the same age as Gwen. He's 31, which surprises Gwen because she thought he was younger than her by 5 years, judging by his appearance and demeanor. He asks Gwen about her family, wondering if she has any siblings. Internally, she dreads this question, but she feels it's only fair to open up to him a bit. She tells him that both her parents have passed away, with her father's recent passing being particularly tough. He wasn't her biological father, but he took her in as his own. Her real father is now with his other family. The woman from earlier turns out to be her half-sister. She stayed with them for a while after their dad passed away, but Gwen feels like she wasn't really welcome. Arthur interrupts, asking Gwen to hold the hairdryer. He positions himself in front of the TV and starts putting on a performance. Gwen starts laughing and asks him what he's up to. After his performance, he offers Gwen some snacks, mentioning that he brought them along. When Gwen sees the snacks, she remarks that he brought a lot. He starts feeding her and asks if she likes them. Arthur mentions that Leon really enjoys the shark song. Gwen adds that even Nana complained about hearing it on repeat before leaving. As Arthur gazes at Gwen, she notices and asks what's on his mind. He brushes it off, saying it's nothing, but he just realized it's been a while since he saw her laugh. He suggests they hang out with Leon tomorrow if she's free. Gwen responds, saying he doesn't have to go to such lengths, but Arthur asks if she doesn't want Leon to have a happy family. She explains that after losing her parents, the people who were supposed to be her closest family treated her terribly. Since then, she decided to live her life independently. All she wanted was to leave the past behind and move forward with Leon. Lately, she's been pondering what family really means, especially in relation to Leon. She believes he deserves to grow up with a father. More importantly, Leon deserves to grow up experiencing what a real happy family feels like. But it's important to acknowledge that they are not in love with each other. So, she advises him to focus on Leon. Pretending to be a family might end up hurting the child more if it doesn't work out. She knows this from first-hand experience. Arthur insists that he wouldn't go to such lengths for both of them if he only found her physically attractive. He asks Gwen to please give him a chance, at least to prove himself to both of them. Gwen mentions that his ex-fiancée was there that night. Thinking back to that night, Arthur turns to Gwen and casually asks for her room number, offering to escort her. Curious, Gwen remarks on how dependable he seems and wonders why his fiancée would leave him. Arthur responds, acknowledging her perception of him, but also suggesting that not everyone shares the same view. He mentions that people say he never takes things seriously and just messes around, calling him worthless. Gwen quickly defends him, saying he's a good person and shouldn't let others make him feel worthless. Arthur holds her hand, admitting it might sound strange since they've only just met, but he feels at ease when he's with her. He inquires if she's currently in a relationship, and she replies with a no. Then, she wonders about his fiancée. Arthur explains that their relationship ended months ago. He clarifies that he only came on this trip because he didn't want to waste the reservations. He asks Gwen if she thinks they can keep seeing each other after the trip. Additionally, he invites her to spend the night with him. The next morning, Gwen wakes up and realizes it wasn't a dream. She's surprised at herself for being bold enough to have a one-night stand. But she wonders, is that all it was? Can two strangers become something more after just one night together? It would be nice if that were possible. As it's the last day of the trip, Gwen wonders if she should stay and wait. She'll need to let Carol know. Checking her phone, she sees numerous notifications. Among them, there's a message from her Aunt Lilia saying her father was rushed to the hospital earlier. Gwen quickly gets dressed and rushes out, but she's stopped by a lady at the door. In the present moment, Gwen tells Arthur that while she was dealing with her dad's situation, she bumped into the ex-fiancé he mentioned. At that moment, she thought there might be a chance for them to reconcile. But she feels like she ruined it because of her own selfishness. Gwen recalls the expression on the ex-fiancé's face when she saw her, and she knows she'll never forget it. Arthur insists it's not possible. He explains that he has the guest list for the entire ship, which is how he found Gwen. Gwen mentions that the lady said her name was Elaine. Arthur steps closer to Gwen and reiterates that his relationship was over long before the trip began. He emphasizes that he's not seeing or dating anyone. He reminds Gwen that he already told her this before and mentions that he searched everywhere for her. He admits that finding out about Leon was just a coincidence, but all along, he was searching for her. Arthur apologizes, confessing that he looked into her background without her permission. Gwen shares that she also searched for him after finding out she was pregnant. Arthur kisses her head and apologizes again. He tells Gwen that's all he has to say for now. He admits he should have searched for her as soon as he could. He asks her to please give him another chance to prove himself to her, and to both of them. Meanwhile, Carol meets with Lance and he learns that what Gwen told them last time wasn't the whole story. Carol admits she was too pushy that night. She explains that Gwen found out about her pregnancy around the time Uncle Leo passed away. Since she was there for Gwen during these events, she feels partially responsible for everything. What they're confused about now is why the guy is suddenly showing up when he's the one who didn't want to acknowledge Gwen's pregnancy. Even though they informed him about it, Lance points out they can't just take away his visitation rights since he's the child's father. They can only request a custody arrangement. However, it might be difficult if Gwen agrees to certain terms. At Gwen's home, she wonders aloud if they can truly provide a loving family for Leon. Arthur admits he can't be certain, but after hearing everything, he promises to do his best to resolve the misunderstandings. They can start by getting to know each other better, he suggests. Gwen agrees, saying they should do just that. The next day, at Gwen's house, Arthur suggests they start by seeing each other at least twice a week since they've agreed to give it a shot. He mentions he has limited time to prove himself to her, so they should adjust their schedules accordingly. Plus, if he wants to spend time with Leon, they need to be there too. as per their agreement, Arthur mentions that Gareth finished setting up the baby car seat for Leon. He's excited because now they can take Leon to more places, not just nearby. Arthur expresses his desire to buy more things for Leon, and assures Gwen not to worry about the bill. He wants to provide for Leon as his father. Gwen mentions that Arthur is supposed to be really busy. Arthur responds that he doesn't want to miss the chance, in case Gwen changes her mind. Gwen then asks Nana if she's coming along. Nana declines, saying she doesn't want to intrude on their family bonding time. She suggests they enjoy themselves while she goes to change Leon's clothes. Gareth enters, greeting Gwen. He mentions he's brought Sir Leon a new baby carriage. Gwen internally wonders why they are calling Leon Sir when he's just a baby. She asks Gareth where Arthur is, and he explains that Arthur went to install the car seat himself, learning how from YouTube. Gwen asks if it'll be safe, and Gareth reassures her, saying he'll double-check before they leave. Gareth adds that Arthur was so excited last night, he asked for Gareth's help in getting a baby carrier that fits Sir Leon's size. Gareth has been lending a hand since day one, helping Gwen move in, but she realizes this is probably the first time they've had a proper conversation. Gareth mentions to her that it's been a while since he's seen Arthur looking this happy. In the car park, Gwen apologizes to Arthur for making him wait. He suggests they get Leon settled in his seat. Gwen expresses a bit of concern about the car seat. As they sit in the car, Arthur mentions that this will be their first official trip together. He reminds her not to forget the seatbelt, teasing her playfully. As they arrive at the mall, Arthur mentions he wants to pick up some things for Leon and the house. Gwen questions if the new carrier isn't sufficient, but Arthur insists that Leon needs more clothes too. The manager of a boutique in the mall greets them warmly. Arthur informs the manager that they are in search of some baby clothes. Gwen mentions that Leon is growing so fast at his age, and it might be a waste to buy too much. The manager reassures her, saying they have a fantastic selection for his age. They begin trying on clothes for baby Leon, and they all look great on him. Gwen even snaps some pictures of him wearing the outfits. Arthur suggests to Gwen if she'd like to try something too, but she declines, saying she's fine. Inwardly, Arthur notes that she always seems uncomfortable whenever he offers her something. He wonders what he can do to make her accept his gestures. In the past, any woman he met would be thrilled to receive gifts like jewelry, clothes, or makeup. But with Gwen, it's different. His usual approach doesn't seem to work with her. Arthur suggests to Gwen if she'd like to try out the famous sweets shop nearby. She responds that if that's where he wants to go, she's okay with it. Arthur says they'll go after he finishes checking out, but if she spots something she wants, she should tell him right away. Arthur asks the manager if she has any suggestions for a dress that might suit Gwen. The manager suggests it might be better if he chose it for her. Arthur thinks to himself that he wants Gwen to fall for him, even just a little bit, during this date. While Gwen and Arthur are eating at the mall, he mentions that he arranged for the clothes to be delivered to her address. He asks if she's sure she's only getting that one item. Gwen confirms, explaining that she can't eat a lot because she's still nursing Leon. She needs to be careful about what she eats. Arthur ponders if what Gwen is experiencing is postpartum. He wonders about everything she must have gone through in the last year. He realizes he still has a lot to learn. Arthur encourages Gwen to eat more and mentions that he wants her to share more of her thoughts with him, or at least more about herself. Like how she just talked about nursing Leon. He tells Gwen that he wants to know anything she feels comfortable sharing. He explains that these trips are about more than just taking Leon out to new places. Gwen agrees, saying she'll do her best. As they finish eating, Arthur asks Gwen if she wants to go somewhere else before they head home. She responds that she can't think of anywhere to go. They spot a jolly bear, and Arthur brings Leon closer while Gwen snaps a picture of them. Suddenly, they notice Percy and his daughter. She mentions it's her birthday today, and she's turning 4 years old. Arthur asks Percy why he wasn't invited to his daughter's party. Percy explains that it's just him and her mother celebrating with her today. Arthur's ex-wife Bianca joins them, and Arthur introduces Gwen as his partner and their son's mother. Percy suggests they all join them, but Arthur declines, feeling that Fiora's birthday party should be celebrated among themselves. As they say goodbye and Percy leaves, Bianca asks him about the woman with Arthur. Percy explains that he met her on the cruise they went on. As Arthur explains to Gwen, Percy and Bianca are co-parenting now, but Fiora mostly stays with her mom. He mentions it's good to see that it can work out, just in case their own situation goes sour. Gwen responds that she wants Leon to grow up with a family that stays together. Gwen thinks about the possibility of Leon growing up in a situation like hers with a cold, broken family. Arthur suggests she should hurry up and fall in love with him again. She wonders if she can truly fall in love with him once more. Despite feeling afraid, she decides to take the chance for the sake of her baby, or rather, their baby. Sitting in the car, Arthur thinks to himself that even though nothing went exactly as planned, he's happy it ended well. The only downside is that now he doesn't want to say goodbye yet. This must be the first time he's thankful for traffic. When they arrive home, Arthur remarks how 1 minute Leon is sound asleep, and the next, he's wide awake. He finds Babe is really amusing. Arthur asks what Leon is doing now, and Gwen replies that he wants to eat. She thinks he must be hungry after waking up, considering he's been asleep for some time. Gwen prepares Leon's meal and feeds him. She asks Arthur if he wants to give feeding a try, and he agrees. However, when Arthur attempts to feed Leon, the baby refuses to eat. Gwen mentions that Leon is usually a foodie, suggesting that maybe he's just not used to being fed by others, and encourages Arthur to give it another try. After a little while, Arthur tries feeding Leon again, and this time, the baby eats without any fuss. Gwen mentions that they need to sort out their schedules. Tomorrow, Leon has a vaccination and a checkup scheduled, so they won't be available. Arthur says he'll join them. She asks if he doesn't have work, mentioning that he shouldn't let Percy handle too much of his workload. After all, he has a life outside of work with his own family. Arthur expresses his desire to be there for the appointment, understanding that it must be scary for an infant to receive all those shots. He believes Leon needs as much support as possible. Gwen mentions that it's scheduled for early in the morning, warning Arthur that there's a lot of waiting around and it can be pretty boring. However, Arthur responds that he's never bored as long as he's with both of them. Leon finishes his food, and Arthur asks Gwen if she thinks they've bonded more now. She suggests that if that's not enough to bond over, he could stay the night. It'll be easier since he's joining them tomorrow morning anyway. She tells him to go shower and get changed because they still need to finish aligning their schedules for the week. In the bathroom, Arthur mentions he never expected Gwen to be the one inviting him to stay over. He sees it as making some progress. It hit him earlier that Leon still doesn't see him as his dad, at least not yet. He realizes he'll need to do his best to get closer to both of them. As he steps out of the bathroom, he spots Gwen and asks if she's going to give Leon a bath. She confirms and he expresses his interest in trying to give Leon a bath too. Inside the bathroom, as they bathe Leon, Arthur starts joking around, using the soap bubbles to play with both Gwen and Leon. After the bath, Gwen dresses Leon, and Arthur enters her room, commenting on how calm Leon usually is. Gwen warns him that Leon might not always be so peaceful. Arthur then decides to lay down on her bed, mentioning that he's tired too. Surprised, Gwen questions what he's doing, and he responds that they still need to discuss their schedules, assuring her that he's willing to adjust his to match hers. She tells him to cut out the jokes and suggests they discuss things outside. Arthur takes her hand and admits he's nervous, not just now, but every time they are together. He acknowledges that being embarrassed won't help him with either of them, so he's trying his best to overcome his nerves to get to know her better. Drawing her closer, he asks for permission and kisses her. After the kiss, Arthur plants a kiss on her forehead and bids her good night. He heads to check on Leon. In the living room, Arthur wonders if he's rushing things. They had a great time on the cruise, but now her expression seems different from back then. Gwen's phone buzzes, and she steps out to grab it, realizing she left it behind. She bids Arthur good night and heads to her room. Checking her phone, Gwen finds a message from Carol. She thinks to herself that they agreed to discuss things again at the law firm. Perhaps Carol is just calling to remind her. Gwen gets a text from Arthur with their family photo. She thinks to herself that she's usually pretty calm, but he always manages to make her feel flustered. Maybe it's because of his mole, it's so distracting. He did ask her to share her thoughts with him, so she figures she could be more honest. She replies to his message, saying she had fun. The next morning, Gwen wakes up, thinking she'd usually be woken up by Leon crying. She checks his crib, but he's not there. Panicked, she rushes outside and sees Arthur wearing an apron, holding a plate of food. He greets Gwen and asks if she slept well. She shouts, telling Arthur he shouldn't take Leon away like that. Arthur apologizes, explaining that he woke up early and wanted to take care of him so she could sleep in a bit longer than usual. He offers her breakfast, admitting he can't cook anything fancy, but he thinks she'll like what he made. Nana comes in, greeting everyone. Arthur explains that he asked Nana to bring some clothes for him for work, so he can head there right after Leon's checkup. He suggests they try the breakfast he made. As they taste it, Nana remarks that she'll make something else. Arthur asks if it's that bad, and she responds that it's too salty, from failing to change a diaper, to trying to help Gwen get some rest, and then failing to cook a meal. She figures he'll manage to do something successfully helpful next. All of this reminds her what it's like to get help from others, to feel like she can rely on them. But if she wants everything to continue like this, they'll have to discuss their legal terms soon. She feels terrible. At the hospital, Arthur walks up to the receptionist and tells her they are here for Leon's checkup. Meanwhile, the nurses gossip about them, saying how lucky Leon's mom is and how cute the baby is. While filling out the form for Leon, there's a bit of confusion about his last name. Arthur brings up the topic of marriage, and Gwen questions if he's absolutely certain about it, expressing concerns about potential regrets. Arthur reassures her that he's been consistent in saying he won't regret it. Gwen decides to go and submit the form herself. After a while, they call for Leon Moranti, and a lady standing behind Gareth and Nana overhears. She remarks that she wasn't imagining things earlier. Turning to them, she asks if they'd like to share more details. Nana is shocked to see the lady addressing her as Lady Fave. She thinks to herself that when she went to pack up the stuff Arthur wanted, the lady was waiting there. She hasn't had a chance to tell him since he's been so excited to be with Gwen, but she hopes she'll have the opportunity soon. How does this lady know about Arthur's son? Fave tells Nana that the physical exam will take a while, so she should let Arthur know she'll wait for him at his office. She also mentions she needs to get her iced Americano coffee. Then it's time for Leon's checkup. The doctor says they need to measure his weight and height first. Leon starts crying, but Arthur manages to make him laugh. After the checkup, the doctor says everything looks good, but they'll need to watch his weight for now. He's more than 1 kilogram over the ideal weight for his height and age. The doctor asks if when he cries, Gwen tends to try and feed him first to quiet him down, and Gwen says yes. The doctor reassures her, saying it's normal. Sometimes just a peaceful setting, or a soft touch can help him feel better. Plus, they advise against letting babies use screens too much. Besides the growth concerns, it's been proven that too much screen time can make kids gain too much weight. Arthur mentions that it's preferable for Leon to be a bit heavier than too thin. He looks forward to the future when they can hit the gym together. The doctor informs them that it's time for Leon to get his shots. As they give Leon his shots, he starts crying, and they do their best to soothe him. Gwen usually came to these checkups solo or with Carol, but today's different. She never thought it could be enjoyable. After the appointment, Arthur offers to drive her home, but he's got to rush to work. She tells him not to stress, reminding him it's important to focus on work sometimes. While Arthur kisses Leon, Gwen wonders if he wants to kiss her too. But he just gently strokes her face and says he'll call if he can visit again. She agrees with a simple okay. Nana interrupts, calling for Arthur. Gwen then asks Gareth if they can make a quick stop at the mall before going home, but tells him not to tell Arthur about it. Gwen thinks to herself that Arthur has been really trying hard to take care of them, so she wants to do something nice for him in return. She mentions to Gareth that she wants to buy Arthur a gift to show him gratitude for all his help. Gareth agrees. Just then, Arthur comes over and informs them that he's off duty. Gwen notices Arthur's expression and asks Nana if something's up, but Nana assures her it's nothing. At the mall, Gwen browses for a gift for Arthur, but everything seems pricey. Nana tells her not to get disheartened just yet. If you had asked Gwen a while back if she'd consider doing something like this, she'd probably have been annoyed at the idea. After all, Arthur has always been a jerk to her. I mean, who shows up in someone's life unexpectedly with a scary lawyer, and then brings tension when they meet again? She used to worry that Arthur might try to take Leon away from her completely, and honestly, he could have done it easily. He's got way more money and connections than she does. It's been freaking her out this whole time. Now she's starting to wonder if getting Lance involved was even needed. Maybe Carol was just being overly anxious about everything. She's thinking it's still a bit early to make a final call, but the way Arthur's been acting lately is making it pretty clear he's not aiming to take Leon away. Before, she never bothered to give Arthur a chance, but now she's got others stepping up to help her out. But one thing she's sure of is that she's starting to find joy in life again. Thanks to Arthur, and the new folks he's introduced into her life, Gwen's anxiety is fading away bit by bit each day. But honestly, she's not sure if that's a good or bad thing because everything's going so smoothly. She's wondering if it'll last. Later, when Arthur's with his friends, Fave notices he seems preoccupied with something else today. She teasingly calls him her big bro, leaving him momentarily speechless, just calling her name. Arthur asks Fave what she's doing here. She gets up and asks why he's being so cold. She wonders if he isn't happy to see her. She says she can't believe him and explains she's only here because there have been complaints about him missing work recently. He says he heard from Nana that Fave already knows. She says she didn't mean to get into his business. She was out shopping when she saw him with a woman she didn't know. At first, she thought it was just someone else, but the kid looked exactly like him. She went to his home to talk to him about it, but found out he was staying with the woman and the kid. She asks who the lady is, and he tells her to mind her own business. She asks if their aunt knows about it, and he says no, she's the one person who should never find out. Fave says that either way, it's big news. She thinks it makes sense because he's always been very responsible, so this seems like a perfect fit for him. She says that ever since their father died, he's been so focused on taking over the company that he didn't have time for anything else. Honestly, she didn't think he'd settle down after Elaine. She asks if he plans on telling their mother about it, and he says it's not like he's been trying to keep it a secret. He just wants to get some things figured out first. With all the misunderstandings, he hasn't been able to tell Gwen about his condition yet. He knows he needs to tell her eventually. It's important that she understands why Leon means so much to him. He wants to explain everything to her, but he's scared. The last time something like this happened, it really hurt him, and he doesn't want to go through that pain again. He worries that sharing this part of his life might end up causing more problems, but he also knows that keeping it a secret isn't right either. He's stuck between wanting to be honest and not wanting to be hurt again. At the mall, Nana says she's curious about how Artie will react when she gives him the present. Gwen hopes he'll like her gift. She then asks if everything was okay earlier. Nana says there's nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. Gwen gets a call from Arthur and tells Nana that he says he'll visit later. Nana asks if she's okay with his late, unexpected visits. Gwen says she doesn't mind. Then, She asks what kind of food he usually likes, because she wants to return the favor since he made breakfast earlier. They chat about it for a bit before continuing with their day at the mall. Back at the office, Arthur says he can't believe she actually agreed. Fave says she can't wait to see her sister-in-law. Arthur wonders if Gwen would agree to be called that too. Fave tells him to trust her because she's a woman with 5 years of marriage experience after all. They share a laugh and continue talking about the upcoming visit. They both head to the meeting room to meet with their aunt and other people for business. Arthur tells the attorney they'll catch up later. The aunt introduces the sellers, Mr. and Mrs. Cruz, who turn out to be Camilla and her husband. They exchange greetings and start discussing the business matters at hand. As the meeting begins, Arthur realizes he's seen them before. He remembers that she was harassing Gwen in public. If he recalls correctly, she's Gwen's half-sister. Now, they are telling him that they are the ones who own the land they need to acquire to kickstart Dad's last housing project. Arthur silently processes this revelation while the meeting continues. Back at home, Gwen says goodbye to Nana and Gareth as they leave. Once they are gone, she turns to Leon and tells him he was really brave. She mentions how much she enjoyed going to the checkup with his dad, but for now, it will be their little secret. They share a smile and go about their day at home together. Gradually, Arthur's surprise visits are becoming a regular part of Gwen's day, something she eagerly anticipates. At the office, after the meeting ends, Arthur chats with Camilla and her husband. He mentions that according to their legal team, the land doesn't actually belong to them. He offers to help them out, but has one condition in mind. It's really important that she apologizes to Gwen. Arthur stresses that she needs to say sorry sincerely and take a good look at her actions. He's aware of what happened between her and Gwen, including the not-so-nice stuff. Camilla nods, showing she gets it. Arthur adds that it's best for her to do it sooner rather than later. After Arthur leaves, Camilla starts laughing, saying he isn't really that smart. She mentions Gwen casually, wondering who would think she could catch a guy like him. Now that she's 100% sure he's the one, the father of Gwen's kid, she's confident. She believes they'll see who ends up apologizing to whom if this little scandal goes public. In a flashback when Gwen was little, she asks her dad if she's an abandoned child. Her father assures her that he'll never leave her alone. He hopes that as she grows up, she'll find someone who will always be there for her. They share a tender moment, and Gwen feels comforted by her father's words. Right now, Arthur wakes Gwen up from her sleep. He asks if she's okay, and Fave greets her, saying she's Arthur's prettiest little sister. Fave rushes over to Gwen and holds her hand, asking if she can call her Gwen's sister-in-law. Gwen hesitates a bit, thinking sister-in-law is a bit too much. Fave sees Leon and quickly rushes over to pick him up. As Gwen looks at them together, she wonders where her jeans went. Arthur apologizes, saying he's sorry that Fave kept insisting on meeting her. He really didn't want anyone to find out yet. Fave explains she just wanted a proper introduction. Gwen reassures them it's all right. She mentions she's prepared some stuff for dinner, and will get everything ready right away. In the kitchen, Arthur apologizes to Gwen. She asks if he's okay with it, with a family member knowing about them. He admits he didn't want anyone to find out yet. Arthur says he guesses it's okay if it's Fave. If anyone was going to find out, she's the best-case scenario. He gently touches her face and notices she seems tired. Arthur asks if she was getting everything ready just because he said he was coming over, and Gwen responds, saying Nana told her he likes it, and this is her payment for the breakfast he made. Arthur insists she should take care of herself too. Just then, Fave walks into the kitchen, calling them love birds. She hopes they are cooking food. Fave then turns to Leon and says he might become a big brother soon. As they eat, Fave compliments the food, and Gwen offers to teach her if she wants. Fave takes Gwen's hands and says she can't believe her brother found someone like her, a sweetheart, cute, and kind. Fave even jokes that she wants Gwen to be her wife instead. Gwen thinks to herself that since Arthur comes from a wealthy family, she was worried his family would be like something out of a drama. She feels relieved that Fave isn't like that. She can tell she's a nice person. Seeing their close sibling bond makes her feel happy and grateful to be a part of their family dinner. Fave asks if Gwen is all right, and Gwen confirms she is. Fave mentions that Gwen might be wondering why she's here. She explains that her mom's birthday is coming up and suggests that Gwen and Leon join them. Fave thinks it would be a good opportunity to introduce Leon to the family. Gwen expresses concern about whether they'll accept them, but Fave reassures her, saying it won't happen. Flashback at the office, Fave expresses disbelief to Arthur, wondering why he's so wishy-washy. All this talk about lawyers and custody battles is enough to make any woman nervous about trusting him. She emphasizes that she's not involved with anyone else. They both have a child, and they are clearly attracted to each other. In her opinion, he should just take the plunge and propose already. They can make it a memorable occasion and start their journey together with a bang. Arthur wonders to himself if Gwen will still accept him if she finds out the truth about him being sterile. He figures they already have Leon, so maybe she won't judge him too harshly or be against having their family together. He ponders if she'll be okay with meeting his friends too. Right now, Gwen suggests they should meet his family. After dinner, while Gwen washes the dishes, Arthur apologizes about his sister, saying her energy was overwhelming. Gwen agrees but mentions she doesn't hate it. Arthur expresses his happiness that she agreed to meet his family. He thought she might decline, but Gwen explains she was actually thinking it would be best for Leon. Arthur grabs Gwen's hands and holds them tightly. He asks if she's really doing this just for their child, still seeking reassurance about their relationship. He expresses his hope that she's also considering what's best for herself and for both of them. Fave enters, suggesting she'll take care of Leon tonight since she has more free time. This way, they can enjoy some quality time together. They agree, and Gwen suggests to Arthur that they meet up later. She mentions they have some things they need to discuss in private. Later that evening, Fave mentions to Gwen that she didn't think Gwen would agree to her offer so easily. Gwen explains she was actually just thinking they needed to have a serious talk, so she appreciates the help. Fave responds, hoping her first impression wasn't bad and that Gwen doesn't find her rude. Gwen quickly reassures her, saying not at all. Fave thanks Gwen and expresses her hope that they can get closer, especially since they are the same age and now family with Leon here. She admits she's just worried about her brother, he's not the quickest with this stuff. Fave mentions she was surprised when she saw them at the mall, not just because of Leon and Gwen, but because her brother looked genuinely happy. After chatting for a while, Fave admits she's the one who suggested the cruise as a proposal idea. She feels guilty about it. Gwen then reveals they actually met during the last day of that cruise. Fave immediately hugs her, feeling touched by the connection they share. In the second room, Arthur mentions Gwen wanted to talk in private, but he's not sure why they have to be in this room. He wonders what Gwen and Fave are up to. Meanwhile, in Gwen's room, Fave promises to take good care of Leon while she's away. Gwen thinks to herself how close Arthur and Fave are. They really look out for each other. She also realizes it's time to have a serious talk with Arthur about their relationship and define where they are headed. Gwen walks into the room where Arthur is getting dressed. He assures her he'll be done quickly and suggests she take a seat. Arthur hopes the invitation to his mom's birthday wasn't a burden. Gwen admits she's okay with it, but she's also a little scared. Arthur comforts her, saying she'll be fine because she has him. He promises to be there and guide her when the time comes. She expresses her amazement at how kind he is. She admits she can't quite understand him. They barely know each other, and when they first met, it was just a one-night stand. Even after she tells him he's welcome to visit Leon anytime, he goes as far as saying he wants to marry her. She thinks he should tell her what they are, define their relationship. When she's with him, She tries to convince herself it's only for Leon's sake, that being here with him is solely for Leon. She hates how she can never seem to act like her old self when she's around him. Suddenly, Arthur steps closer to her and admits that he likes her. He genuinely wants to be with her. His words catch her off guard, making her pause and consider what he's saying. He tells her that he's not usually this kind to just anyone, it's because it's her. He moves in close, almost trying to kiss her, but then he pulls back, apologizing. He says she's just so cute. He asks if he can hug her instead, and she agrees. He wraps his arms around her, saying he doesn't like it when she gets mad at him. They share a warm embrace, both feeling a sense of comfort in each other's arms. She wonders if he would still like her if she told him she had a meeting with her own lawyers regarding the situation. He assures her, saying of course he would. She asks if he isn't mad, and he responds by saying isn't that a normal reaction when he initially came at her with lawyers. However, he's glad she opened up about it. He explains that he talked to his own legal team about everything, and they advised that it would be best if they come to an agreement. Arthur lies on the bed, admitting he was worried their talk would be dark and heavy, full of fighting. He's relieved that it's not. Spotting the gift bag, he asks what it is. Gwen hands it to him, explaining it's for always taking care of Leon. He opens it and finds a hairband inside. Arthur smiles, saying he really likes it. He asks her if she can put it on him before she heads back. She helps him with it, and he thanks her. She brings up how he mentioned he isn't this kind to just anyone. But she remembers the first time she saw him, he was surrounded by women. She wonders how many people he dated before. Then, she quickly says he should forget it. She shouldn't have asked something like that so suddenly. She reassures him she's not trying to pressure him into anything. He admits he doesn't quite know how to respond. It's true, he's dated several people before. Of course, he's here for Leon too, but he'll never forget how she was there for him at his lowest. Just her presence cheered him up. After a short while, she decides she should head back. Deep down, she doesn't want him to notice how she's starting to feel happy when they are together. That's why she's always in a hurry to leave. But for some reason, she always ends up feeling inexplicably sad later on. It's a mystery she can't quite figure out. Arthur stops her at the door and asks if she'd like to stay the night. He gets very close to her, admitting he's already reaching his limit. Suddenly, he kisses her passionately. But just then, Leon starts crying. Gwen rushes out, saying she'll go check on them. Fave explains it's an emergency. Leon's temperature is pretty high. Everyone's attention shifts to tending to Leon, putting their other plans on hold. Gwen checks his temperature and confirms it's a fever. Arthur tries to reassure her, saying she shouldn't worry. Fave is currently on the phone with a specialist. Gwen asks if there are any pediatricians who will see them even at this hour. She's concerned because his temperature has never been this high before. She wonders what she should do next. Feeling anxious about Leon's health, Arthur tells her to calm down and suggests wiping him with a cool, damp cloth to ease his temperature. Later on, Fave informs them that it's from the vaccine shot, and it's a common side effect. She advises them to keep trying to cool him down regardless. Fave gives him a fever medicine and mentions that Gwen should have it around because babies at this age are prone to getting sick. They follow Fave's advice, feeling relieved to know what's causing Leon's fever, and how to help him feel better. They'll still need to monitor his temperature, checking every 4 hours. Arthur quickly runs off to get medicines. He admits to himself that this has made him realize he still has a lot to learn about being a good parent. He wonders what he would have done if Fave wasn't with them, and what he'll do in the future when she's not around. He told Gwen not to panic, but deep down, he's also feeling a bit panicked himself. At home, Gwen thanks Fave, expressing how she doesn't know what she would have done without her here. She feels like Fave knows everything there is to know. Fave dismisses it, saying it's not true. Unlike Gwen, she admits she sucks at cooking and really any chore. Fave jokes that she's only good at taking care of kids, and that's mainly thanks to their big family on their mother's side who taught her everything she knows about it. She admits she's actually running away from a big fight with her husband. Coming across Gwen and her brother was just by accident, though it ended up working out in both of their favors. She apologizes for lying about her intentions for being here, but she assures Gwen that the things they talked about earlier and asking her to their mom's birthday were all genuine. Gwen reassures her, saying she's always welcome to stop by, and she hopes she and her husband can reconcile soon. Arthur rushes in, saying he got the meds she listed. He mentions that Fave's husband called, asking if she was here and if they are fighting again. Fave told him she wasn't here to hide. Arthur then asks Gwen how Leon is doing, and she responds that it looks like his condition is getting better. She expresses gratitude that he and his sister are both here. Gwen apologizes for freaking out earlier, feeling relieved that Leon is improving and appreciating their support. Arthur admits he wasn't prepared for the situation, but he's determined to learn more about how to take care of children. He wants to become a better parent. He then picks up Leon. Gwen asks Arthur if he could come meet someone with her. They still need to come to an agreement on custody. Arthur agrees, feeling ready to face whatever challenges come their way as they navigate parenthood together. Gwen mentions she was thinking of introducing him to her best friend, the one she was with during the cruise. Arthur expresses he'd be happy to, but wonders what changed her mind. She explains it's because he invited her to meet his family, so she wanted to return the kindness. She adds that Carol is the closest thing to family for her and Leon. Carol has helped her a lot over the past few years. Arthur suggests he should bring her something as a thanks. As they continue to talk, they hear Fave saying sorry and crying. Arthur remarks that it sounds like things are all good with Fave now, at least. In Gwen's room, she brings Arthur some new towels for Leon. She compliments him, saying he's getting better at handling Leon. Arthur admits he's way better with toddlers than older kids, but with babies, he still feels like he has a lot to learn. He thinks to himself that it's because he never thought he'd have a chance to have his own baby. Gwen asks Arthur if everything is okay, and he replies that he was just a bit lost in thought. He then asks if the kiss earlier made her upset, but Gwen remains at a loss for words. Arthur suggests they can talk about it more another time. He proposes they rest now that Leon is a bit calmer. Gwen inquires if he's sleeping here too, and he responds that Fave is occupying the room she was supposed to use. He reassures her, saying he probably won't do anything. He invites her to come to him, and they both lay on the bed. Gwen admits to herself that she never thought she'd want Leon to cry. She wonders if she's the only one feeling anxious. Arthur tells her that time flies when they are alone. He confesses he thought he would be satisfied if he could visit here at least once or twice a week, but it looks like that's not the case. He expresses that he wants to see her every day because they are both so precious to him. Turning the other way, he mentions he's also excited to meet Carol so he can personally thank her. Gwen holds onto his shirt from the back and says goodnight. As she reflects, she keeps thinking she's only doing all of this for Leon's sake. However, she finds herself being pulled more and more into Arthur's world, unable to resist the connection they share. The next morning, Faith mentions she ended up staying up all night to talk to her husband and the kids. She sees Leon and Nana and expresses relief that Leon is looking better now. Nana greets her, and Arthur suggests he'll go on ahead first. He tells Fave she should go home and make up with her husband. Gwen hands him a lunchbox, mentioning she made him some lunch. She tells him he should take it if he wants it. He thanks her, saying it'll be great. Then he brings up the meeting with her friend, and she says she was just about to ask her about a time. He suggests she should let him know if their schedules line up, and she adds that he should check if he forgot something, calling him Mr. Moranti. He kisses the back of her head and suggests she should start by calling him by his name like last night. Then he dashes off. Later on, Fave bids them goodbye. Gwen reflects to herself that it feels a little late now, but she feels the need to set things right. She's determined to address any lingering issues and ensure that everything is resolved properly. Later that day, Gwen is getting ready to go out. She tells Nana to contact her about Leon's condition from time to time and assures her she'll be back soon. Gwen arrives at Carol's house and hopes she isn't bothering her while she's on leave from work. Carol reassures her, saying she could never bother her because they are family. They share a warm moment, grateful for each other's support and understanding. Gwen admits it might seem a little sudden, but she'd like Carol to meet Arthur. Carol is taken aback and asks what this is all about so suddenly, wondering if Arthur is forcing Gwen into this. Gwen reassures her, saying it's nothing like that. They had a talk and decided to handle things amicably. She suggests maybe Lance could join them too, to make it a friendly gathering. Carol serves them food and casually remarks that Gwen has a lot of explaining to do. Gwen explains that she was the one who proposed the idea of Arthur meeting her because Carol is the only real family she could think of. Carol responds, saying that's not all there is to the story. Gwen mentions that every time Arthur stops by, he always goes above and beyond for her and Leon. It inspires her to want to put in the same amount of effort. She thinks to herself that maybe if she does that, things will work out this time. Carol remarks that Gwen is always thinking of others before herself, and that's her kind of love. Carol expresses her relief that Gwen is finally able to speak to her about what she really wants. After enduring the past few years, she was worried Gwen would never open up like this again. Carol admits she's always felt the need to protect Gwen and Leon because Gwen can be overly kind. However, she realizes now that it wasn't necessary, as Gwen is strong in her own way. Gwen shares her perspective, saying she believes they may have misunderstood Arthur. Despite her sometimes cold behavior towards him, he's always been patient and understanding. He's carefree by nature, but he takes her anxieties and Leon's well-being seriously. No matter what, he remains reliable and supportive, which she appreciates deeply. Carol laughs, remarking that normally she would be more pushy about Gwen's issues, but she's never seen Gwen like this before. If Gwen truly believes it's the best decision for her and for Leon, then Carol will support her in this new endeavor. However, she warns Arthur that if he ever does anything to make Gwen upset again, she's going to smack him. Carol asks Gwen what she plans to do about Lance, and Gwen explains that she and Arthur both agreed it would be best to have a formal agreement to resolve the dispute. Carol then mentions Lance's feelings towards Gwen, hoping she's aware of them. Gwen has always tried to ignore Lance's feelings, because she didn't want to assume anything in case she was wrong. But after spending so many years with the same feeling, she finally understood its severity. He chose a good career path over her, and she can't blame him. What did she even feel that day? Was she sad? Was she angry? She can't even remember. Gwen says she wants to apologize properly to him for disrupting everything, and Carol asks if Arthur knows about her family situation. Gwen replies that he knows a bit. No matter how much she tries to stay quiet, she guesses he's always bound to find out about it. Her sister, Camilla, and her husband were at Arthur's office when she went to visit. Carol asks what they were doing there, and Gwen says she doesn't know. By the looks of it, Arthur didn't know either. He ended up protecting her from Camilla's pettiness. Carol wonders what's Camilla's damage. Gwen ended up moving in with her to get away from them after her dad passed. Is Camilla really jealous of her, or is she just a sadist? Gwen's phone rings, and it's a video call from Arthur's number. She answers, but Percy's face appears on the call. Arthur then shows his face, apologizing for the mix-up as the camera flipped. Gwen introduces Carol, and Arthur says he's Leon's dad. He's really happy to meet someone so close to Gwen, and is excited to see Carol soon. Carol responds with a casual cool. Carol's phone rings, and she rushes off to get it. Arthur mentions he's super excited about eating the lunch Gwen made for him today. Percy chimes in, saying Arthur told him he wasn't allowed to eat any. Gwen reassures Arthur that he didn't have to do a video call. Arthur explains he has an urgent meeting later today, so he doesn't think he'll be able to visit her and Leon tonight. Gwen reassures Arthur that it's all right, understanding his need to focus on work. Arthur persists, expressing his longing to see her face and how much he misses her. Gwen reflects on how effortlessly he expresses his feelings, which always brighten her day. She marvels at his ability to convey such emotions with ease. Suddenly, Lance enters the room, interrupting their conversation. Gwen quickly apologizes for not giving much notice, but appreciates Lance joining them. Lance brushes it off, saying it's not a big deal. Gwen mentions she hoped their next meeting would be under happier circumstances, but it's about her case this time. Lance asks if she's made her decision, and Gwen confirms. Lance mentions he had a feeling since it was a sudden call, but assures her she'll have his support in whatever she decides. He adds that he still believes she needs a written agreement, just to be safe. Gwen agrees, mentioning that Arthur also suggested it, and it aligns with what his legal team advised. Lance nods, noting that Arthur's attorney is his mentor, so it's logical. They should start by listing everything Gwen requires for the agreement, but if there's anything too extreme, he'll have to mention it. Carol suggests that Gwen should ask for monthly child support from Arthur. Gwen was nervous about bringing up such a serious matter like their legal dispute with everyone, but they've all been really supportive of her situation, especially Lance. There was a time when Lance didn't care about school at all. Gwen tried to get him to focus, but he wouldn't budge. However, after that phase, things got better and school became fun for him. Right now, Gwen apologizes for interrupting, but she needs to go home, because Nana needs to get back to her place soon. Lance says he'll leave too, outside, as they stroll along. Lance mentions how late it's getting and suggests accompanying Gwen home. She assures him she'll be fine, but he insists, mentioning how it's been ages since they had a chance to chat alone. Just then, raindrops start falling, but Gwen confidently pulls out her trusty umbrella. Lance, however, proposes they make a quick stop at the nearest convenience store to grab an umbrella, just in case. As they continue walking, Lance elaborates on his point. He emphasizes the importance of mutual agreement in situations like these. It's not just about reaching a compromise, it's about finding a solution that both parties genuinely feel good about. He adds that he's concerned about Gwen's well-being and wants to ensure she's being treated with kindness and respect in her relationship. Lance explains that when he said competing, he meant that he's her legal aid. Gwen replies that she's okay, and she believes this is best for Leon. Lance then says that if Arthur ever does anything to hurt her or makes her cry, she should let him know, and he'll make sure Arthur regrets it. He tells her to contact him when she sets a date for the written agreement. She thanks him in her mind and feels sorry, as she watches Lance run in the rain. In a different part of town where it isn't raining, Gwen thinks to herself that she's been so busy taking care of Leon and dealing with Arthur that she hasn't had a chance to really look around the neighborhood. She thinks it's really pretty. Arthur had told her he wouldn't be able to come tonight, but she secretly wishes he would. Suddenly, she sees Arthur rushing towards her. He hugs her from behind and calls her his darling. Gwen is shocked and thinks his face looks a bit flushed. Is he drunk? Arthur holds her hand and says they should go home. As they walk, she asks why he's here since he was supposed to be at an important meeting. He explains that their plane got delayed because of bad weather, but he's happy about it because he got to see her today. She points out that it hasn't even been a full day since they last saw each other, and they even had a video chat earlier. Arthur says a video chat isn't nearly enough. He says he can't do any of this through a screen. Whether it's only for half a day or just an hour, he'll always make time for her and Leon because he gets super lonely. They get back to the house and find Leon playing on the floor. He rushes to Gwen, and she asks if he's feeling better now. Nana wishes them well and excuses herself. Arthur says he'll play with Leon, and Gwen should go take some time for herself. She agrees and goes to take a bath. While in the bath, Gwen thinks to herself that Arthur hasn't asked about her visit with Carol yet. Usually, he'd be full of curiosity by now. Maybe she's just overthinking it. After her shower, Gwen comes out and realizes the house is quiet. She sees Arthur sleeping on the couch. When he opens his eyes, he tells her that Leon fell asleep, so he put him down in his crib. Gwen asks if he'd like some coffee or tea since he said he's been feeling lonely and might want to talk. Instead of answering, Arthur pulls her closer to him. Gwen holds his face and tells him not to pull someone like that so suddenly. She asks if he's always been this super touchy. Arthur asks if she doesn't like it, and she says that's not the issue. He assures her she's the only one he's like this with. Gwen teases him, saying he always knows just the right thing to make a woman swoon. Arthur tells her not to say it like that because he's serious about her and only her. Gwen says she doubts it. Arthur explains that he's told her before that he's only ever been around women, his mom, his two sisters, and Nana. Being used to being around women was a survival tactic if nothing else. Arthur says Fave is a bit nosy and loud and overly energetic. Sometimes she even irritates him, but he doesn't dislike it. He thinks that's what makes them family. Gwen says that sounds wonderful. Arthur adds that she's going to be a part of their family too, or rather, she's already a part of their family because she's the mother of their son, which means she's automatically in. Gwen asks if she's really allowed to be part of his family, and Arthur says he's sure they'll like her. He then asks about her day, saying he feels like they are always talking about him. Gwen says she doesn't mind, because she doesn't find herself that interesting. Arthur tells her to feel free to share her thoughts with him whenever, because he can be pretty dense. And if she doesn't tell him how she's feeling, he won't know. Arthur kisses Gwen's hand and says that if it's about her, he won't get bored. He assures her he's not just saying this because he's a little tipsy, he means every word. Gwen suddenly gets up and mentions that her best friend is free tomorrow, so if he's okay with that, she'd like to meet her. Arthur says sure. He grabs her and pulls her closer again, thinking inwardly that he's just like this sometimes. Gwen asks if something happened, and he says it's nothing, but then he suggests that maybe a kiss from her would cheer him up. She leans in and gives him a peck, telling him to cheer up and that if it's nothing serious, he should go home now. Arthur agrees, saying he won't disturb Leon. He asks her to tell Leon that he'll miss him. Gwen tells Arthur to be careful as he leaves. As Arthur is about to leave, Gwen tells him he can visit anytime as long as it's not a bother for him. He tells her to wait, holds her face, and says this will have to do for now. He mentions that Leon can sense it, so they should stop for now. Gwen is confused about what he's talking about, and he says maybe next time. Later that night, Gwen is in her room, deep in thought. She thinks this is bad because when they met again, she wanted nothing more than to hate him. It was much easier than being vulnerable about their situation. But whenever she's around him, does he even know how much effort it takes for her to calm herself just to stand next to him? Meanwhile, Arthur's aunt calls Fave, asking her if her brother really has an illegitimate child. Fave wonders how her aunt knows about it. Did Arthur tell her? Should she just act ignorant for now? She tells her aunt that she doesn't know what she's talking about, adding that Arthur isn't casually dating anyone. Her aunt says very well and hangs up. In her office, the aunt thinks about the situation. She wonders what the executive board and investors would say if they found out someone in their family has tainted their values. She and her late brother founded the business to construct homes for families, and they've always prided themselves on promoting traditional family principles. She's always had to cover up Arthur's misbehavior to protect the company's reputation and their family's reputation. But his mischief has never been this bad before. Earlier, Camilla went to the office with her husband, Ron. Ron asks if what they are doing isn't too much, but Camilla insists it's only the beginning and it'll work out nicely for them. Ron suggests that talking to Gwen directly would be better. He believes that if they explain why they need the money, she'll understand because she's her sister, after all. This makes Camilla angry. She snaps that Gwen isn't her sister. Ron tries to apologize, but Camilla cuts him off, saying he's never understood. She accuses Gwen's mother of stealing other people's husbands and bets Gwen will be just like her mother. She blames Gwen and their father for everything, fuming about how dare Gwen smile like that. Right now, Gwen and Nana are out for a walk with Leon when Arthur joins them. Gwen thinks to herself that Carol was able to get off work early today, so she should be here soon. She's surprised Arthur suggested they meet at the apartment. Arthur touches Leon's head and offers to help Gwen carry her bag. He asks her if he looks presentable today, saying he tried his best not to look too formal. Gwen responds with a yeah. As they walk, he holds her shoulder, and Gwen thinks to herself that, to be honest, she thinks he looks good in anything. At the apartment, Arthur plays with Leon, trying to teach him how to walk. Gwen reminds him that Leon can't walk yet. She thinks to herself that she had already lost hope on any of this happening, especially during that time. Arthur hopes he and Carol can get along. Just then, the doorbell rings, and Gareth arrives with Carol. Arthur introduces himself to her, and apologizes for all the commotion. They've prepared some really delicious stuff for her, though. Carol, being bold, asks what the real reason he wanted to meet with her is. Arthur shocks everyone by saying he wants to marry Gwen. Even Gwen is surprised to hear this. Carol questions why Arthur is so keen on marrying Gwen now when he rejected them an audience when they first tried to reach out to him about Gwen's pregnancy. Carol thinks to herself that she was initially worried, but looking at him now, Arthur looks hot and probably pretty wealthy. But that's all the more reason to be suspicious of his intentions. She decides she'll find out for Gwen's sake. Gwen tells her to calm down, but Carol insists it's about time they hear an explanation from Arthur. Arthur asks Carol if she can explain things more clearly. As they sit down, Carol mentions that Gwen hasn't brought it up to Arthur yet. Gwen explains that it's not that she didn't want to, but she doesn't find it necessary anymore. Carol disagrees, saying it is necessary. She admits that she's always been against the idea of Arthur barging into Gwen's life like there was never anything wrong. Gwen acknowledges that in hindsight, it's all her fault for running off. Arthur adds that he also wants to understand how they got here. Gwen agrees and says, all right. In a flashback, at the hospital, the doctor tells Gwen she's 5 weeks pregnant. The doctor asks if her husband is with her today, but Gwen says it's okay, she'll be on her way. After looking at the picture of the scan, she rushes to meet Carol and hugs her, saying this can't be happening. After she tells Carol, Carol asks if she can remember the man's name. Gwen says it was Arthur Moranti. Gwen cries, worrying about whether he'll recognize her or the baby. But Carol comforts her and suggests she stay with them for a while, saying she should ditch that fake family of hers. Carol helped Gwen escape from her awful household, where her parents and Uncle Leo, Gwen's stepdad, were lifelong friends. Gwen was considered family to them, but it was a toxic environment. After leaving, they tried to find Arthur with the only clue they had, but they couldn't find him. Then, one day, a child gave Gwen a teddy lion, and Carol wondered why Arthur didn't give it to her directly. They learned that some people from a certain construction firm visited their old town. So, they decided to pay a visit, but they weren't allowed to see him. Gwen insists they should stop trying. Arthur admits that he's the one who gave the doll to the boy to give to Gwen. Carol stands up angrily, saying he had the nerve to give her a gift, but was too scared to give it to her himself. Arthur explains that it's a long story. Someone had already told him that Gwen had a boyfriend back then. Carol can't believe that lame story is the reason they are in this situation. Arthur adds that he wants to confirm he never rejected anyone by Gwen's name. If he had known she was looking for him, he would have come to the lobby to pick her up himself. Carol insists that Arthur follows her outside to settle things with booze. Arthur agrees, calling her his mother-in-law. Meanwhile, Leon starts crying, and Nana carries him, saying he usually stops crying when she does this, but not this time. Gwen quickly takes Leon from Nana. Arthur pats his head and asks what's wrong. Gwen thinks to herself that she's been feeding him with a bottle a lot lately, but there have been so many people around lately. Carol tells them they'll go ahead and message them their location. Arthur and Carol go out to eat. Arthur asks if it would be okay to call her Carol, but she tells him not to get ahead of himself. Carol hated when her parents decided to move them back to the countryside. She really stuck out, probably more than intended. Still, even though she seemed unapproachable, one person talked to her. Long story short, Gwen is an incredibly nice person. There's not a mean bone in her body, but that's also made her naive. It's been easy to make fun of her for it. She's so clueless about how popular she is with boys. She says that looking around earlier, she can tell he's been taking care of her and Leon. She's been shifting the blame onto others, especially onto him. In reality, she needs to be the one to take accountability. This all happened because she pushed Gwen too far that night on the cruise. Arthur responds by saying after hearing that, he should be thankful to her. It's true that what happened between them was intense, but is it really so bad that their relationship is unconventional? It may have been just a one-night stand, but for him, even just meeting her gave him life. He admits he's always been the type to never work towards a solution when he feels stuck or depressed. He knows it's not ideal, but he's always been someone who just goes along with everything around him, no matter how it makes him feel. So, he can confidently say that he's genuinely in love with her. She shouldn't worry, he'll take care of Gwen. Carol asks about him, what's his story? Not all men would bother to take on the responsibility of coming back to their illegitimate child. It's obvious to her that he really likes her, but she can't help but feel there's more to this than just having a crush. Back at home, Gwen has just finished breastfeeding Leon. Nana comes into the room and comments that her friend really takes care of both of them. She rarely sees Artie become obedient, except when it comes to his mother. Gwen says she really hopes they get along. They are both direct, so she's hoping that won't cause any issues. She asks Nana what Arthur's family is like. She's only met Fave, and she's a really nice person. Gwen wants to present herself better next time, if possible. Nana reassures her not to worry too much. She'll be there to help her when she needs it. Regardless, they are all more or less like Fave. Gwen admits these kinds of questions never crossed her mind before. But ever since she and Arthur decided to work things out for Leon, she can't help but want to put her best foot forward. She thanks Nana for always helping her out. Nana brushes it off, saying it's nothing. She then asks if Gwen is sure this is what she wants, knowing Arthur can be pushy sometimes. Gwen confidently says yes. At the restaurant, Carol tells Arthur to come again and asks when he's going to tell her about it. Arthur and Carol come into the house. Arthur says everything is cleared up between him and Carol, but she adds that he's still quite a few steps away from taking Gwen. Carol turns to Gwen, saying as her mother, she's wishing them both good luck. She hugs Gwen and tells her to always take care. Gwen smiles and reassures her that she's not going away. Carol says she'll go home now and reminds Arthur to make sure to tell Gwen. Later that evening, Arthur goes for a stroll with Gwen and Leon. He mentions that he's never had the chance to walk with her before, and since she finished shopping earlier, they head to the picnic spot. Gwen is amazed by the place. Arthur says he brought some stuff and tells her to go play around with Leon while he sets things up. As Arthur sets up, he remembers when Carol told him about Camilla, and how he was able to discuss the issue he's having with her at the office. But there's another thing weighing on his mind, about him, about his body being diagnosed as sterile. He knows he won't be able to keep it a secret from Gwen much longer. But will she even be willing to be with him if she knows he can't have another child? They sit together after Arthur finishes setting up. They talk about Carol caring for Gwen. Gwen thinks to herself that she's still curious about the other day. Arthur has been looking like he wants to tell her something, but he can't seem to manage it. She wonders what she can say to make him feel comfortable enough to confide in her. Gwen holds his arm and tells him if there's something bothering him, she's ready to listen. Arthur leans in and asks her if she likes kids. She explains that it's not like she ever disliked kids before, she just didn't think too much about them. But after having Leon, she can't help but find them adorable. Arthur nods, understanding. Gwen thinks to herself that there's something about this conversation. It's as if they've managed to lessen the distance between them. But is it strange that this same distance makes her feel lonely? Arthur shares that Leon is like a miracle for him. Both Gwen and Leon have made his life brighter again. He admits he's scared of losing Leon and her. Just then, a ball comes their way, and Arthur quickly protects Leon. Gwen reassures Arthur that everyone is okay, and he shouldn't worry about it. Arthur asks Leon if he's all right, checking if he's hurt anywhere. He hugs him tightly, relieved, and Gwen stands looking confused about what's going on with him. Arthur tells the children playing with the ball to watch where they are throwing it. Gwen says he should stop scaring them, reminding him that they are just kids. She offers to handle it instead. She gently tells the children to be careful of their surroundings next time, and they apologize while crying. As they leave, Leon starts crying because Arthur is hugging him a bit too tight. Gwen tells Arthur he's hurting Leon, and he quickly apologizes. She suggests they should head back so he can rest. At the apartment, Arthur tells Leon to be a good boy and wait for Gwen. After a while, Gwen walks in and asks Arthur if he's calmed down now. He says yeah, and apologizes for ruining the evening. Gwen thinks to herself that this is her first time seeing him like this, but it reminds her of that one night. She wonders if there's anything she can do. She asks him if he wants to talk about it, and if it's related to what he said earlier about not wanting to lose Leon and her. She tells him that if they want to build this new relationship together, they need to talk about things, no matter how hard it is. She believes she's shared her part, and she wants to hear about him directly from him, not secondhand from someone else. They both deserve that much. If he isn't ready to share, she understands, but she hopes he will try. Arthur says he told her about his dream of having his own family. He admits he used to be a rebel who didn't care about anything or anyone, not even himself. He always thought that getting married and having a family was just something guaranteed as people grow up. It wasn't until his father passed away that he started to take things seriously, the company, his mom, his sisters, everything. He had never proved himself to be responsible enough to take care of it all. He got so caught up in his new responsibilities that he didn't realize how many people around him had started to build their own families. Arthur says he made excuses that he didn't realize what was happening around him because he was too busy. In reality, he was punishing himself for his father's passing by diving into work. Then he met his ex-fiancée. She wanted a family, but he couldn't give that to her. He wasn't the complete package he always wanted to be. Any woman who falls for him and wants children would have to abandon that desire. Arthur says that when he was in high school, he was diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin lymphoma. They knew it was serious, but since it was caught early, there was a high chance of being cured. He focused on his recovery, but during the most intensive treatments, all he could do was lie in bed. The radiation and chemotherapy had a possible side effect of infertility, which he wasn't prepared for. He didn't think too much of it at the time, but gradually, he accepted his reality. With the help of his loved ones, Arthur has always felt like he's been on borrowed time since his recovery. He decided that if that was true, he'd just live life on his own terms. He hadn't had any serious relationships until he met Elaine. He was sure he was completely okay, that he was whole, so he got tested to prove it. But it only led to disappointment. He's sorry for hiding this from Gwen and for being selfish. Gwen asks if the way he treated them all was just an act. He says of course not. He just wasn't sure how she'd react to all of this. He starts crying, saying he can't have children with his partner, and that he's not the complete person he's always wanted to be. Gwen rushes to hug him and says he's such an idiot, he should have just told her everything from the start. She tells him he's all right and that they have Leon. Arthur says he wants to be part of their lives. She thinks to herself that if only they could have been honest from the beginning, but she guesses things happen for a reason. It may have taken them some time to get here, but she hopes they can continue to move forward like this together. She kisses him, and he says he wants more. Just then, Leon starts crying, so they both rush to the room to see what's wrong. Leon starts giggling, and Arthur says he's been trying to tell her that Leon can sense disturbances in the Force. She jokes that he can be a little bit clingy, like someone she knows. Meanwhile, Arthur's aunt arrives outside the apartment, saying to herself that this is the place they've been hiding. Leon dances as his parents play with him. Gwen says maybe they have a dancing king in the making. She adds that he looks just like Arthur, so there should be no doubt that he's his son. Arthur looks at her and kisses her, thanking her. She removes her mouth, saying not in front of the baby. Meanwhile, Carol just got out of the car and is walking to her house, but Gareth is still following her. She asks how long he's going to follow her, and he says he was told to see her home safely. She says she gives up. It looks like he was programmed to say that. She adds that she's still not fully convinced about how good of a person his boss is yet. Gareth recalls how Arthur helped him with his job when he lost his old job. He tells Carol that he hopes his loyalty to him can show what kind of a person Arthur really is. As she talks, she almost bumps into a child, and Gareth catches her. He asks her if she's all right, and she says she just wants to go home. Back at Gwen's apartment, Carol texts Gwen that she's finally home. She adds that Arthur isn't bad for now, but if he does anything bad to her and Leon, then there would be a problem. After the text, Gwen thinks inwardly that she can't get it out of her head, the thought of him having such a serious illness. For someone like Arthur, who wanted to build a family and not being able to, but most importantly, she's been acting out weird. Now she can't sleep, and she's thirsty. She goes outside the room to get water and sees Arthur. He asks if she's here for a late-night drink too. She asks him what he's doing, and he says he's just checking his schedule for this week. Since she asked, he wonders if she's curious about his work. He shows her the schedule while holding her happily. She thinks inwardly that she's really curious though, he sure has a packed schedule. She asks him how, with a schedule like this, he finds time to be here. He explains that he usually ends up moving some appointments around. She comments that with the amount of time he's here, she'd hardly say he's only moving some appointments. He asks what she was doing before Leon, and she says she was on her last term for interior design. He suggests helping her finish her studies. He can't bring back lost time, but he can fully support her and Leon in the present. Though she'll have to let him on stage with her while she receives her diploma. She thanks him. He moves closer to her and asks if she wants to continue where they left off earlier, and they start kissing. After a while, she tells him to wait, and he asks if they should take it to the bedroom. Fave and her aunt stand outside Gwen's apartment. Her aunt asks if she understands their current situation. Rumors are spreading like wildfire. People are saying that the VP having an illegitimate son is hypocritical to their company's values. Fave responds that she doesn't see anything wrong with it. It's not like it's the biggest problem he could have. She means that he's single, so it's not like he was caught cheating. The aunt tells Fave that Arthur represents their company wherever he goes. Fave responds, suggesting that she talks to them. She promises that the girl is genuine. Plus, they plan to make things official soon. They just did things a little out of order. Can't they leave them alone? Fave asks her aunt if she thinks Arthur deserves this happiness right now. The aunt agrees to give them time until the upcoming board meeting. But if the situation gets out of hand, she'll take action herself. Inside Gwen's house, she expresses concern about making noise, as she can't leave Leon alone, and he needs to be up early the next day. Arthur finds her cute and claims he only speaks the truth. He then starts kissing her. After a while, he carries her and asks why she's still shy. She admits she's scared that things are moving too fast again, and they'll end up repeating past mistakes. As he carries her to the room, she insists she can walk on her own. He gently lays her down, suggesting they should take things slowly. He reassures her that his eagerness doesn't mean he's not serious. As they lie on the bed, they bid each other good night. Arthur admits inwardly that he's scared she might leave again one day, especially if Leon were to go too. He wouldn't know what to do without them. Suddenly, Gwen asks if he's upset. She feels awkward and timid, hating that part of herself the most. Arthur turns to her, saying it was that very part of herself that brought them together. Inwardly, he confesses he loves everything about her and hopes she can feel his sincerity. The next morning, Gwen wakes up to Leon crying. She quickly goes to him and picks him up. Arthur wakes up and remarks that her mornings always start with Leon's cries. Gwen nods, saying it happens every time. She tells Arthur he can sleep more if he wants to, but he insists he should help. He asks what's the point of him being there if he's not lending a hand. Gwen smiles, agreeing, and says she just needs to teach him some baby care basics since he's a little behind on it all. Arthur changes Leon's diaper with ease, feeling proud of himself for mastering the art. Gwen asks if he should be leaving for work soon according to his schedule, but he says he can't just leave them alone. He was waiting for Nana, but she's running a bit late. Today they're sorting out the legal paperwork for Leon, scheduled after work. Gareth will pick her up along with her attorney. Gwen agrees. The doorbell rings, and it's Nana and Fave, both looking sad. Arthur asks Nana and Fave why they look so down, and why Fave is here too. Nana accidentally snaps a photo of Leon with Fave, and Fave explains she didn't mean to, she was just scared. She urges Arthur to come aside so they can talk while Nana continues taking pictures of Leon and Gwen. Away from the others, Fave tells Arthur that their aunt, Morgan, knows about the situation. She didn't get the intel from her. Arthur sighs, realizing that just when things were starting to look up between them, they now have to deal with this. Fave suggests that maybe it's time to shed some light on what's happening with Gwen. She doesn't think Gwen deserves to be kept in hiding anymore. Arthur sits down with Gwen and explains that Aunt Morgan is his father's younger sister. She taught him a lot about their family business after his father passed away, and he respects her dedication and professionalism. Nana adds that Aunt Morgan is very traditional and cares a lot about conventional family values. Arthur acknowledges that it's his fault and they shouldn't worry about it. He decides to go and talk to her. Later, Arthur gets dressed and tells Gwen that he and Fave will go ahead first. He promises to meet up with her later to finalize their legal paperwork. Gwen asks if there's anything she can do to help, but Arthur tells her not to worry and assures her that Gareth will come and pick her up as promised. He kisses her on the head, and she tells him to take care. Later, as Gwen plays with Leon, she realizes she can't just sit by and watch. She asks for Leon's cooperation and tells Nana to help her too. Arthur and Fave arrive at the company, and they overhear people gossiping about him being a womanizer and getting a random woman pregnant. He feels frustrated inside because he wants to speak up, but he can't deny some of the rumors. He doesn't understand why it has to be such a big deal. He's not a celebrity, so he wonders why everyone is so interested. He also wonders if Gwen had to deal with similar things. Fave mentions she understands why Aunt Morgan is so tense. Arthur agrees, wondering how things got blown out of proportion. Percy approaches, asking where Arthur has been, explaining the situation is terrible. Arthur admits he's trying to figure out what to do and plans to talk to Aunt Morgan. Inside her office, Aunt Morgan confronts him, noting he's not denying the rumors. She expresses disappointment, explaining his personal life affects the company's image. She feels compelled to address the situation. Arthur asserts that he's taking responsibility and plans to marry his partner officially. Aunt Morgan isn't impressed, insisting he steps down as VP. He agrees to apologize and resign at the upcoming meeting. Arthur leaves her office, running into Camilla on his way out. Camilla smiles and says she didn't notice Arthur there and asks if he's okay. She mentions she's on her way to meet the chairwoman to discuss the land they are selling. She also says she hasn't been able to get Gwen to apologize and talk about their issues. Camilla is sure Arthur understands how hard it is to apologize. Arthur replies that it might be hard for her, but she shouldn't forget their deal. He'll make sure she doesn't get the land deal unless she apologizes to Gwen. As Arthur leaves, Camilla mutters to herself that he's still bluffing and it's only a matter of time. Arthur goes to meet Percy and Fave. Fave asks him how it went, and Arthur says he was told to resign. Fave says their aunt can't do that because their father gave the company to Arthur. Percy then asks what will happen to him if Arthur resigns. Arthur replies that sometimes he wonders if this is even the right thing for him. Percy tells Arthur he can't quit now and asks what he's going to do, become a lazy father. What will his son think? Fave laughs and says his imagination is running wild since Leon can't even talk yet. She then asks Arthur if he has a meeting with Gwen later to sort out their legal paperwork. While in Gwen's area, Gwen thanks Nana for coming on such short notice. Nana says she told her she'd help in any way she can. Gareth walks over and says he has arrived, and Lance is here too. Gwen introduces Lance to them. Nana compliments Lance and introduces herself as Lydia. Gwen tells Lance he looks sharp today, and says Arthur will probably feel intimidated just by looking at him. Lance thanks her and says he'll do his best. Gwen then introduces Leon to Lance. Leon looks away angrily, and Gwen says she's never seen him act like that before. In a cafe, Gwen mentions that Leon is usually a very happy baby. Lance tells her not to worry about it and comments that she sure has a unique group of people around her these days. He asks if they are going to join them, and she says that while they are unique, they are all incredibly kind. Lance asks if they will agree to Arthur's terms once they hear them. Gwen replies that, assuming there are no surprises, yes. She adds that Arthur probably thinks this has been a waste of time and resources just to reach this resolution. She says that if she were in his position, she would wonder why start a legal battle if it won't be finished. Lance reassures her, saying that he doesn't think that at all, he just wants her to be happy. Gwen says she's glad she chose Lance for her legal counsel. She stands up to get their order and asks Lance to look after Leon. As she leaves, Leon looks like he's about to cry, but Lance starts playing peekaboo with him, and Leon immediately stops. Back at the company, Arthur is on a call with Nana. He asks her what's wrong, and she tells him that there is a rival. As Lance continues to play with Leon, he thinks to himself that he's glad it's going well. He's not really good with children since he didn't have a good childhood himself, so he doesn't even know what an adult should do in this situation. Gwen walks up to them holding a plate of food and asks if they are finally getting along. Lance says he hopes so. While Arthur is still on the call with Nana, he mentions that they've already reached an agreement, so the other person's involvement is just a formality. It's no big deal to him because they are in love. After the call, he decides to finish some work before meeting Gwen later. Fave then asks him if he's going to ignore the rumors circulating within their company. They have a meeting with the executives in a few days, and she wonders if he's seriously thinking about resigning. Arthur replies that he just needs more time for now, but he'll let Aunt Morgan handle things. Arthur thinks to himself that he needs more time to understand what Camilla's frequent meetings with Aunt Morgan mean. However, that's a second priority for now. As he talks with his attorney, Camilla stands nearby, listening in. At the cafe, Nana tells Gwen they'll watch over little Leon in the waiting area so Gwen can go inside. She assures Gwen they won't take him anywhere, and Gwen says she trusts her completely. At the attorney's office, Lance exclaims he can't believe he's actually here in his office. Gwen thinks to herself that Lance mentioned Arthur's lawyer mentored him. Now that she thinks about it, it's been quite a while since she last saw him too. The lawyer greets them and mentions he was told Mr. Moranti will arrive a bit later, but they can begin without him. He acknowledges Lance and invites them to take a seat. The lawyer explains that initially, Mr. Moranti planned to take the custody matter to court. Lance asks why Mr. Moranti would consider such drastic action when he's only met with his client once. The lawyer mentions that initially, Gwen ignored their requests for Mr. Moranti to have visitation with his child. Gwen responds, asking what she was supposed to do. It all came out of nowhere. They had only briefly met nearly 2 years ago, and then suddenly she started receiving mail and calls from him, knowing about her child. The lawyer advises her to calm down, saying that's all in the past as far as he can tell. He asks her to please take a look at the new contract Mr. Moranti has requested. Arthur finally arrives and sees Nana with Leon in the waiting room. Nana informs him that Gwen and her lawyer are already inside. She advises him to listen to her and be careful of that guy. Arthur reassures Nana that Gwen isn't like that. Arthur enters the office and apologizes for being late. He's surprised by Lance's appearance. The lawyer welcomes Arthur and mentions they've already begun discussing the new proposal, currently reviewing it. Lance introduces himself as Lance Tanaka. Arthur introduces himself and greets Gwen, but she doesn't respond. As they continue reviewing the proposal, Arthur quietly asks his lawyer if Gwen and Lance aren't too familiar to be discussing matters together. Lance asks Gwen what her concerns are. Does she want to ask for less from him? Gwen replies that everything is acceptable, but Lance notices she doesn't seem satisfied. Arthur watches them closely from across the room and starts to worry. He clears his throat and mentions that the actual proposal hasn't changed much. They are willing to listen to any concerns she might have. Gwen quickly dismisses this and Arthur wonders silently why she's acting that way. The lady bringing refreshments accidentally spills a drink on Lance. She apologizes and goes to get a napkin. Gwen takes out her own napkin and helps Lance, telling him to use it quickly before the stain sets. Lance insists he's okay, but Gwen continues to clean up the spill. When Lance accidentally touches Gwen's hand, Arthur steps in, taking the napkin, and saying he'll handle it instead. Lance asks Arthur what he's doing, and Arthur replies that he's just helping out. After the meeting, as they walk out together, Lance comments to Gwen that it seems like most of the things they listed won't be needed after all. Gwen responds, saying maybe she could have taken things slower, but Lance reassures her, saying he thought it would be better to include everything just in case. He asks if she's really sure everything is okay, telling her she can always tell him if she needs help. Arthur interrupts them, saying they should excuse him. He pulls Gwen aside to a corner and holds her hand. Gwen removes her hand, and Arthur asks if it's because he was late. He holds her gently and asks if it's about the custody proposal, reminding her they already discussed it last night. Back in the waiting room, Camilla enters and tells the receptionist she's actually looking for something. She spots Leon and remarks that it looks like she's found it. Camilla thinks to herself that she knew it. The moment Gwen left home, she thought she was finally done with her forever. But now, with this ridiculous land deal and seeing how much Leon resembles him, it's basically obvious. As she's about to grab Leon, Ron stops her, saying it's enough. Nana turns around but doesn't see anyone there. Ron pulls Camilla outside to a corner and asks why she's resorting to such extreme measures to avoid talking to Gwen properly. He tells her he's had enough of her behavior and knows their relationship with Gwen isn't the real issue. Ron is confident that if Camilla simply explains the money is for their daughter's operation, Gwen would understand. Camilla disagrees, thinking it's crazy to believe their past relationship means they can easily communicate now. She can't believe Ron would suggest such a thing. In her thoughts, she vows never to ask Gwen for help. She believes she's better and superior to her. If Ron won't assist her, she decides she'll handle everything on her own terms. Back at the company, Arthur hugs Gwen and apologizes for being late. He mentions he had more amendments planned, but he wants Gwen to decide for herself if she wants him in her life without any contracts. Gwen replies that he already knows her answer. Gwen thinks to herself that she hates how she always overthinks things, but she's grateful that Arthur's confidence makes her feel more sure of herself. They hold hands as they return to Nana. Meanwhile, Lance is with the lawyer. The lawyer hands him a tie, apologizing for his secretary's mistake. He adds that it's great to see Lance again, and recalls how he used to think Lance would be one of the first in his class to drop out. Despite that, he always believed in Lance's talent and intellect. Arthur walks in with Gwen. She mentions she hasn't properly introduced Lance to Arthur yet. Gwen introduces Lance as her childhood friend and attorney. Arthur suggests they could be friends, and Lance replies they should wait and see how the custody situation unfolds first. They all return to Nana and Leon. Lance thinks to himself that he hates to admit it, but Arthur is definitely Leon's father. Leon sees Lance and reaches out for him. Arthur playfully tells Leon that he's betraying him. He hands Leon to Gwen and encourages her to go ahead. Then, Arthur takes Lance aside and says they need to talk. He assures Lance not to worry, it's not about legal matters. Arthur just wants to get to know Lance better since they are going to be friends. Outside, Lance asks Arthur what's going on. Arthur asks if it's true that he's childhood friends with Gwen. He wants to know what Lance knows about Gwen's family, especially her sister Camilla. Arthur is concerned that Gwen might be in danger, and he needs Lance's help to understand the situation. Lance asks what Arthur means, and Arthur clarifies if Lance knows anything about Gwen's half-sister. Lance responds that as Gwen's attorney, he's not here to discuss her personal affairs or share private information about his client. Arthur questions if Lance is concerned about Gwen's well-being at all. He suggests they shouldn't argue and try to get along, but Lance points out they are not on a first-name basis. At a bar, Arthur asks Lance how well he can handle his alcohol. He mentions it's been ages since he had a drink with someone his own age. Lately, whenever he's gone out for a drink, it's been with older businessmen. Arthur suggests they have a drink together to get to know each other better. As Lance and Arthur chat, Lance thinks to himself about Gwen having a child with a man she met on a cruise, the same cruise he was supposed to go on with her. He always believed they would end up together, no matter what. He never expected something like this to happen. Despite it all, Arthur makes it hard for Lance to dislike him. It's clear how much he cares for Gwen. Lance asks Arthur why he came into Gwen's life again. Arthur reflects that their meeting on that cruise was just perfect timing. When they first met, they clicked surprisingly well. They had easy conversations without any pressure to keep things going or impress each other. Lance interrupts, asking Arthur to answer his question. He wonders why Arthur reappeared in Gwen's life, when he could have chosen to date any woman in the world, given his looks and personality. Arthur responds that the answer to that should be clear by now, especially since they have a child together. He promises to take care of both Gwen and their child. Arthur acknowledges it must seem odd and even annoying from Lance's perspective, especially after leaving Gwen alone for over a year. Lance interrupts, saying he still doesn't like Arthur, so he shouldn't get cocky. He urges Arthur to begin by explaining why he believes Gwen's half-sister is involved in all of this. Back at home, Gwen wonders how things are going between Lance and Arthur. She puts Leon to bed because the doorbell rings. When she answers it, she finds Arthur and Lance there. Arthur remarks that he didn't expect Lance to be such a lightweight with alcohol. Gwen asks what happened to Lance and suggests they lay him on the couch. Arthur wants to take a picture of Lance, but Gwen tells him not to. She starts wiping Lance with a towel, and Arthur takes over, saying he'll help. Arthur then asks about himself, mentioning he carried Lance after all and deserves some care too. Gwen insists he should just go and wash up because he smells like alcohol. Arthur comes out of the bathroom, and Gwen asks him what he was thinking bringing Lance here. Arthur hugs her from behind and admits he doesn't know where Lance lives. Gwen tells him that if something like this happens again, he should call her. A heads up would have been appreciated. Arthur apologizes for the inconvenience. He asks Gwen if she isn't happy to see Lance, but she questions what he means. Arthur brushes it off and she stays silent. Arthur compliments her, saying she looks great in her nightie, and he starts kissing her. Gwen interrupts, telling him to wait. He explains he just wanted to know if Lance meant something special to her. She calls him silly and hugs him, asking if that's enough to satisfy him. She asks him about the problems he's facing at work, remembering that Fave had called her earlier and informed her about the issues at Arthur's company. Fave wants her to get involved and help. Gwen mentions they've discussed this before, no more secrets. She explains that when he keeps things from her, it makes her anxious. They both want to build a stronger relationship, right? She's placed her trust in him, so now she wants him to trust her in return. She tells him that Fave mentioned he might have a clue about who's behind the issues at work, and she insists he should let her help. He responds that he doesn't have any proof, but he suspects it's her half-sister. Gwen remembers back to their childhood when she hoped that one day, as they grew older, she and Camilla could get along. She wished they could realize that the situation wasn't their fault. Camilla and her biological father made their choices clear. Gwen never wanted someone else's mistakes to ruin their relationship. Arthur suggests they talk about it tomorrow, but for now, they should rest. He promises to explain everything and support whatever decision Gwen makes in the end. Gwen thinks to herself that she used to dread facing each day, but since coming here, she feels like things are starting to improve. At Medical City, Camilla visits her daughter. She mentions she's heard that her daughter has been listening to her nurses. Camilla hugs her daughter, who expresses a desire to recover quickly so they can return home without her parents fighting. Camilla silently vows to herself that she'll secure the money needed to aid in her daughter's recovery. The next morning at Gwen's house, Lance wakes up next to Arthur and quickly sits up, asking where he is. Arthur wakes up and explains that Lance got really drunk yesterday, so he brought him here. Just then, Leon crawls over to Lance and calls him Ada. Gwen walks in and asks if Lance is okay. After chatting for a bit, Lance asks Arthur about what he wanted to talk about yesterday. Arthur then asks Nana to take Leon outside to play. Leon starts crying as Nana carries him out. Arthur tells Gwen that he didn't intend to keep it from her, but he was wrong. The truth is about Camilla. She's been meeting with his aunt for some time now. He admits he doesn't have much information on the details because they've been keeping a lot from him. Lance then asks if Arthur believes Gwen's half-sister is behind this. Gwen asks if Camilla truly believes she wouldn't be willing to listen to her. She questions if Camilla hates her so much that she's resorted to something like this. They've never had a good relationship, but Gwen never thought Camilla would stoop so low. Lance adds that if they can gather strong evidence, they could potentially bring multiple charges against Camilla. Gwen decides they should wait instead of avoiding their problems. She expresses that she doesn't want to run away anymore. She needs to confront Camilla and have a conversation with her. Outside, Gareth asks Nana if she wants him to accompany her. Nana reassures him it's fine and mentions she's just going for a walk around the neighborhood. Gareth nods and returns indoors. As Nana takes a stroll with Leon, Camilla disguises herself. Back at home, Gwen tells Arthur that she didn't realize how much trouble she was causing him. Arthur quickly reassures her, saying it's not true. He admits the responsibility for their situation rests solely on him. He thought he was protecting her, but that didn't turn out to be the case. He acknowledges he's taken the wrong approach, but he promises they'll be okay and get through this together. Arthur's phone rings and he's informed about a suspicious person lurking around. When he confronts the person, they insist on speaking to Gwen about her sister. Gwen asks what's going on, and Arthur assures her he'll handle it. After a while, Ron arrives and admits he should have contacted her sooner. He tells Gwen that Camilla is normally a kind person and hasn't always acted this way. After their first meeting with the chairwoman, Camilla started behaving strangely. Initially, he thought it was just frustration over the difficult deal, hoping she would calm down over time. But instead, she's become increasingly fixated on Gwen. He admits he shouldn't be going behind Gwen's back like this or asking too much of her, but he needs her help to intervene with Camilla. Gwen asks what he means, but just then Nana rushes in, crying that Leon is missing. As Nana cries, Lance advises her to take a deep breath and explain what happened. In a flashback, Nana was walking with Leon towards the park. As they crossed the road, a speeding car nearly hit them. Nana fell to the ground, and someone approached her to check if she was okay. Meanwhile, the car drove off, and when Nana looked around, she realized Leon was gone. It turns out Camilla had taken him away. Ron suggests he knows where Camilla might be, but asks them to spare his wife from any trouble. Arthur instructs Gareth to take care of Nana, ensuring she's looked after. He tells Lance to assist in coordinating with the authorities. Lance suggests waiting for the officers to arrive before taking action, emphasizing safety. Arthur reassures him not to worry and promises to stay with Gwen throughout the ordeal. In the car, Arthur vows that if anything happens to Leon, he'll ensure Camilla faces serious consequences. Gwen tries to suggest they should try talking things out calmly. They arrive at their destination, which turns out to be Gwen's biological father's house, where she stayed after her father passed away. Gwen finds a note left by Camilla, speculating aloud about what Camilla might do to Leon if they don't comply with her instructions. Arthur expresses concern that it could be risky. She tells Arthur she understands, but she needs to be courageous, especially now for their son's sake. Arthur reassures her he'll stay close and urges her to call him right away if anything goes wrong, advising her not to act impulsively. As Gwen enters the house, she thinks to herself that she wants to trust her sister wouldn't harm Leon, knowing she's also a mother. As Gwen steps into the house, she finds Camilla holding Leon. Camilla remarks that leaving the note was a clever move, confident Gwen would figure out where they were. Gwen demands Camilla return Leon, but Camilla admires how cute and healthy he is, expressing jealousy. She insists Gwen sign a document, but Gwen wants to know why Camilla is doing all this first. Camilla angrily tells Gwen to shut up and sign it. Gwen tries to reason with her, saying she wanted to understand her better, but Camilla refuses, stating she hates Gwen's existence. Gwen suggests they could have resolved everything through a simple conversation. Lance and Ron join Arthur. Ron apologizes, admitting he didn't expect his wife to go to such extremes. Arthur cuts him off, saying he appreciates the apology, but if anything happens to Gwen or their son, he will ensure Camilla faces consequences. Inside the house, Camilla slaps Gwen and demands to know why she always interferes. She insists Gwen should just obey her orders and sign the document. Gwen defends herself, saying she never wanted any of this. She explains she's never tried to harm any family, and none of this situation is her fault. Camilla accuses Gwen of lying, claiming she seduced Arthur and had a baby with him to trap him. Meanwhile, Leon cries loudly, and Camilla angrily tells him to be quiet. Gwen grabs Camilla's hands and warns her not to dare hurt Leon. She takes Leon back into her arms, but Camilla pushes both Gwen and Leon to the ground. Camilla complains that she's always tried hard to keep Gwen away. Yet Gwen keeps coming back into her life and her family's life. She grabs Gwen's hair and demands that Gwen sign the document. Suddenly, Arthur and the others rush in. Gwen hugs Leon tightly, reassuring him that everything is okay now. Ron tells Camilla that her actions were absurd, and if she had listened, things wouldn't have escalated like this. Gwen adds that if Camilla had just confided in her about her situation, she would have been willing to help. Despite their differences, they are both mothers trying their best for their children. Camilla insists they are not alike. Arthur warns Camilla not to touch his family again, and demands that she leave immediately. Camilla accuses Ron of betraying her, claiming she did it all for their daughter. Ron shouts at her to stop being petty and consider their daughter. He insists she come to her senses and avoid a future behind bars, as he doesn't want their daughter to grow up without a mother. Outside, Gwen tells Arthur that she trusted Camilla not to harm Leon, but when it seemed like she might, she got scared. Arthur admits he doesn't know how he would react if anything happened to either of them. He insists Camilla needs to face the consequences of her actions, and he promises to ensure this doesn't happen again. Inwardly, Gwen feels like she can finally move on and close this chapter of her life after all these years. The police come and arrest Camilla. While sitting in Arthur's car, he says he can't believe Camilla had the nerve to hit Gwen. Gwen tells him not to worry, saying she's fine. They stop at a bus stop to sit down, and Arthur says Camilla was about to hurt both her and Leon. He adds that if he lets her go, he'd be putting them both at risk. Gwen asks about Camilla's family, and Arthur explains that he already discussed it with their lawyer friend. He reassures Gwen that she doesn't have to take responsibility for Camilla's actions, and maybe this will help Camilla become a better person. Gwen gets teary-eyed, and Arthur comforts her. Just then, Leon sneezes. Arthur takes off his jacket, wraps Leon in it, and carries him. He mentions that he learned this trick from watching YouTube, and asks Gwen if she thinks he's getting better at being a dad. Gwen smiles and tells him he's already a great father. Lance shows up and says he's taken care of things on his end like they asked. Arthur thanks him, but Lance says he doesn't do this for free. Gwen asks Arthur if she can talk to Lance for a bit, and Arthur agrees, saying they'll wait for her in the car. As Arthur leaves with Leon, Gwen thanks Lance for everything. She admits she feels guilty that he's gotten involved in their personal problems. Lance tells her not to worry, explaining that as a lawyer, dealing with people's personal messes is his job. He adds that he's always felt like he needed to make things up to her. He promises to handle her sister's case and help her sort things out with Arthur. Lance says Arthur knows how to get under his skin, but he can see that Arthur cares a lot about her and Leon. He admits he's envious that Arthur is the kind of man who will do anything for her, even if it means sacrificing something of his own. But he says he's decided not to sulk about the past anymore. He extends his hand and asks Gwen if they can be friends. Gwen smiles and says they've always been friends. Lance then says they should get back to Arthur since he gets jealous so easily. They head back, and Lance says goodbye to them. Just as Gwen and Arthur are about to leave, Faye zooms in with her car. She jumps out and slaps Arthur, demanding to know why he didn't call them. She says she only just found out everything from Nana and Gareth. Arthur's mom asks him how much longer he was planning on hiding all this from her. Arthur asks his mom why she's here. She slaps him on the back, saying she's here because he's been hiding something very important from her. Arthur introduces Gwen and Leon, and Gwen feels nervous, thinking she isn't ready for this. She wonders if Arthur's mom will be one of those difficult in-laws she's seen on TV. But then, Arthur's mom hugs Gwen, and says she's adorable, and that it's so nice to finally meet her. She introduces herself as Egane, but tells Gwen she can call her mother. Gwen's back starts to hurt, and Egane yells at Arthur, asking why he hasn't taken her to the hospital yet. At Medical City, Arthur tells Gwen he's relieved they didn't find any serious issues. She tells him not to leave her, and he reassures her, saying he wouldn't dream of it. He notices she's shaking and asks if she's sure there aren't any other injuries. Gwen admits she's just not prepared to meet his mother like this, feeling and looking terrible. Arthur laughs and says the first thing his mom said was that she's cute, and he's never known her to be easily impressed. After a while, Faye joins them. Just then, Leon poops on himself. Arthur leaves with Faye to change Leon. Egain joins Gwen and says that ever since Arthur brought her and Leon around, it's like all his walls have come down. She's never seen him so happy, and as his mother, that makes her happy too. He looks so relaxed. Egain assumes Arthur has told Gwen about his situation, and Gwen nods. Egain says she was surprised when Faye told her about Leon, but she was more happy than anything. She mentions that Arthur always acts cheerful, but she knows he feels like he has something to prove and is always anxious about being accepted. They couldn't get in touch with him after that incident with Elaine. Egain tells Gwen she doesn't want to add more to her plate, but hopes Gwen knows that Arthur is in this for more than just Leon. Just by looking at him, she can tell. Gwen thinks to herself that she's glad Arthur's family has been so warm and accepting towards her, even given the circumstances. Meanwhile, in the changing room, Arthur asks Faye why she told their mom without consulting him. Faye reminds him about the situation with their Aunt Morgan, and says it's about time he takes real responsibility. Faye says she thought Arthur wanted to be a great example for Leon. She asks if he's going to show Leon that it's okay to be used as a doormat. She adds that Aunt Morgan can't just make decisions like that on her own, especially for such a ridiculous reason. Arthur replies that Aunt Morgan isn't the best example for her kids either. Faye slaps him and calls him ungrateful, insisting he should announce that he's marrying Gwen at the next board meeting to shut their aunt and everyone else up. Arthur confesses that he tried asking Gwen before, but she rejected him. Faye insists that Gwen must have had a change of heart since then, pointing out that things have improved between them. Back at home, Nana cries, saying she's glad Gwen and Leon are all right and apologizing. Gwen reassures her that everything is fine and tells her not to cry anymore. After a while, Gareth informs Arthur that Ron is here and wants to see him. Arthur says he'll handle it and asks Gareth not to let anyone know about it. At a cafe, Ron asks Arthur if Gwen and Leon are all right. Arthur replies that they are, luckily. As they sit, Ron apologizes for everything. Arthur firmly states that he's not changing his decision about holding Ron's wife accountable. She needs to take full responsibility for her actions. And not even Gwen can change his mind on this. He hopes this means Ron's family won't be bothering his family anymore. Arthur adds that he has sent his lawyer to help with the financial aid for Ron's daughter, and wishes her a speedy recovery. That's all he has to say to Ron. As Arthur walks out, he meets Gwen outside, and soon his mom joins them. Egain suggests they all head back to Arthur's place since they are all together now. She mentions his big house and insists he isn't using it much, so they should all go there. Egain adds that next time, Gwen should come to their family house, where she can cook all of Gwen's favorite dishes. They arrive at Arthur's house, and Gwen thinks to herself that it's huge. Out on the balcony, Arthur talks with Gwen. She tells him that Gareth mentioned he spoke with Ron earlier. Arthur asks if she thinks he's being cruel. Gwen replies that she had wanted to mend things with Camilla, but now she feels there's nothing left to say to her. Arthur thanks her for standing up for him and Leon. Arthur admits he's not good at this kind of thing and he's not prepared, so it might not be romantic. But he tells Gwen he's been thinking. He doesn't want things to go back to how they were. If she's willing, he hopes they can continue what they've started or maybe even more. He tells her he doesn't just want Leon, he wants both of them together. She agrees, saying she doesn't want it to end here either. He admits he tries to act cool, but can be clumsy sometimes. Nonetheless, he promises to be a great father to Leon. He acknowledges he may not be able to give them another child. She holds his face and reminds him that she's told him before, he's much more than that to her. He calls her name softly and kisses her. Then he says he'll do his best to make them both happy. He kneels down and asks if she'll do him the honor of marrying a selfish man like him. She replies that if anything, she's worried she'll be the bothersome and selfish one eventually. He reassures her that she will never bother him. She smiles and happily accepts his proposal. Everyone comes out, and Nana says she's proud of him. They all agree it's time to celebrate. They chat and laugh together. Egane and Faye tease Arthur about not giving Gwen a proper proposal, or a ring. They play with Leon, enjoying the moment. After the celebration ends and everyone goes to bed, Arthur hugs Gwen from behind. He tells her he's been waiting for this moment for so long. Gwen worries it might be awkward with his family around, but Arthur says it's a rare chance with Leon being taken care of. She lies down on the bed, and Arthur asks for her consent. She agrees, and he says she might not get much sleep tonight after all. Arthur tells Gwen he would be really upset if he was the only one who wanted this so much. Gwen reassures him that she wants it too. After sharing kisses and being romantic, Arthur tells her he loves her, and they start their couple's activities. The next morning, Arthur asks Gwen how her body feels. He's worried he might have overdone it since she passed out last night. He apologizes, explaining he was just excited because it's been a while. Gwen reassures him she feels fine, actually super. Arthur goes back to sleep, and Gwen heads out to greet everyone. Faye asks Arthur about the early office meeting with Aunt Morgan, as he mentioned. Egane reassures Faye that they've already discussed it. Gwen tells Faye she needs her help with something, and Faye agrees. At the company, Morgan is informed she has visitors, but insists she doesn't want any. Faye walks in with a smile, telling her aunt not to be like that. She mentions Morgan's strong family values and suggests she wouldn't turn away her own family. Faye adds that there's someone Morgan should meet. Gwen enters, greeting Morgan while holding Leon. Morgan asks why they are there. Gwen explains she's heard Arthur is in trouble because of them. She admits she can handle any gossip thrown at her, and knows Arthur can too, but asks Morgan to spare their son. Gwen kneels down, taking responsibility and admitting her own faults. She asks Morgan to give Arthur another chance, saying they've spent the last 2 months together, and she now knows he's a great guy and an amazing father. Outside, Arthur rushes in and meets the secretary, then hurries into Aunt Morgan's office. He's surprised to see her holding Leon. Earlier, Morgan encouraged Gwen to stand up. Holding Leon, she remarks on what a well-behaved baby he is. It reminds her of Arthur when he was young, back when her brother first introduced him to her. Morgan recalls the time when Gwen and Carol came to inform Arthur, and she had sent them away. Now, Morgan asks if there's any way she can make it up to Gwen. She admits she knows about Arthur's situation, and that's why she had her doubts. She wants to be transparent and make amends for everything. Right now, Morgan tells Arthur he should have brought them here himself. Egane comes in and insists that her grandson wants to spend time with his grandmother. Morgan adds that it's obvious Leon prefers being held by his auntie. Arthur tells Gwen he's glad Leon is with family and suggests they sneak off for a bit while Leon is in good hands. Arthur and Gwen join Carol and Percy at a restaurant. Arthur announces he's marrying Gwen, and Carol congratulates her. Arthur promises to take care of Gwen and Leon with all his might. The food looks delicious, and everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. After the meetup, Gwen and Arthur stroll back together. Gwen apologizes, feeling sorry that he won't get to meet any real in-laws from her side. She wishes she had a family to introduce him to. Arthur reassures her, saying she does have a family, Faye, Nana, his mom, and even Aunt Morgan. He mentions there are more people in his hometown she still needs to meet. In short, he tells her she'll soon be part of a big family, so she doesn't need to worry about that anymore. Gwen holds Arthur and thanks him. He hugs her back, mentioning how his patience keeps getting tested and admitting he's not the strongest when it comes to dealing with challenges. Just then, Faye's husband asks Arthur if it's him. At the office, Faye watches Leon play with her mom and aunt. Her husband enters, and she asks why he's there. He apologizes, saying he came to take her home because he missed her, but she tells him he's very late. On the side, Arthur tells Gwen the guy is Noah, his brother-in-law. He explains Noah has been consumed with work lately, practically living at his office. Arthur says they've been arguing a lot because of it. He mentions Faye has been bothering them just because she's bored without Noah around. Gwen asks Arthur if he thinks they'll argue too. He assures her it's normal for couples to argue sometimes, but suggests they should try to talk things out calmly before it escalates. Gwen thinks to herself that they are about to begin a new chapter in their family life together. Arthur is in the living room with Gwen and his mom, planning the wedding. His mom suggests inviting the whole family, but Arthur doesn't seem too thrilled about it. She also mentions a tradition where the groom isn't supposed to see the bride the day before the wedding. Faye comes out and pulls Gwen away, saying it's time for her to try on her dress. Faye apologizes to Gwen that her younger sister couldn't make it. She's studying overseas and hasn't found a good time to come back home. Gwen says it's okay, but expresses her excitement to meet her when she can visit. Gwen tries on the dress, and it looks beautiful on her. Lance stops by to congratulate her in the dressing room, wishing her nothing but happiness and wellness. Carol walks in, complimenting Gwen, and Gwen wonders to herself why Carol is with Gareth. In another room, Arthur is having his own fitting when Lance sees him. Arthur asks what he's doing in the bride's room. Lance jokes that he knows better than to flirt with a woman on her wedding day. He congratulates Arthur and tells him to take good care of Gwen. It's finally the wedding day. Gwen reflects inwardly that just a few years ago, in this same month, they met for the first time on that memorable cruise. The ceremony goes smoothly, and their entire journey leading up to this moment seems like it flew by. She's certain that if people heard they met at a cruise club, they might think it was shallow. Gwen can't help but think they might get some side-eye for not following the usual order and moving so quickly. She admits she even had doubts about their relationship at first. However, Arthur gave her the confidence to believe in herself and in their love. Now, she wants to show everyone how genuine and sincere their relationship truly is. In their room, Arthur tells Gwen he's been waiting for her. She suggests he take a breather since he did most of the talking with the guests. Gwen tells him to freshen up while she prepares the tub. Later, Gwen joins him in the tub. Arthur asks jokingly if he should call her honey or darling now that they are married. Gwen tells him to decide. He admits he's been worried that she might have second thoughts or think things are moving too fast. Arthur reassures her that he truly believes their love is special. He's excited to start this new chapter with her. Gwen agrees, saying she's also eager to experience new things together from now on. Gwen and Arthur teach Leon how to walk, and it's clear he's a mama's boy. Arthur sings and dances with him while Gwen captures photos of their moments together. Gwen thinks to herself that Leon will turn 1 year old this weekend, and she can't believe how quickly time has flown. They've been planning his birthday party, with Nana and Arthur's mom joining in the preparations. It's a lively household. Leon has become a favorite with the family, and they've decided to share his time, especially with Gwen's mother-in-law and Aunt Morgan. Gwen suspects they are doing this partly to give her and Arthur some free time together. In the bedroom, Gwen shows Arthur baby pictures of Leon. Arthur expresses sadness that he missed so many milestones. Gwen then shows him a photo of him and Leon together in the album, reassuring him that he has many years ahead to make up for lost time. Arthur thanks her for her understanding. As they lie down, Gwen mentions that Leon has been spending a lot of time with his grandmother, but she's not too upset about it. Arthur reveals he's been considering getting re-examined, and Gwen assures him that she'll stand by him no matter what the results are. Meanwhile, Another woman receives a call informing her that Arthur has just gotten married. It's Leon's birthday, and everyone is in high spirits. Gwen is outside, grilling for the party. Arthur offers to help, but she assures him he should go entertain the guests instead. Carol is enjoying herself and chats with Gwen. Gwen asks Carol how she can provide emotional support for her partner. She mentions that Arthur never shows it, but she can tell he's worried about his health condition. Carol reassures Gwen that Arthur will open up if it starts bothering him. Gwen also asks Carol about what's going on between her and Gareth. Carol dismisses any romantic involvement, saying they are just acquaintances. After the party winds down, Leon goes to sleep. Arthur remarks on how many gifts Leon received from everyone. Gwen holds Arthur and notices something on his mind. He mentions how enjoyable it was to watch the children play together earlier. Arthur quickly apologizes, not wanting to pressure Gwen about anything. She reassures him that he isn't pressuring her at all. Gwen reminds him that there's no rush for anything specific. She adds that she's happy with how things are right now between them. The next morning, Gwen's phone buzzes, and she checks on Leon. As she heads to the kitchen, she spots a girl with pink hair sitting on the floor, taking food out of the fridge and eating. Gwen wonders who she is. This is where the story ends for now. Drop a comment if you enjoyed watching, and would also want the part 6 to be posted when out. Don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.